I guess my first question is I was watching a clip about hell, right? And there's kind of two sides to the coin. Is nihilism, saying that all the people that's gonna go to hell gonna burn up and just
Yeah.
not exist, and then it's eternal pain. So, you see Matthew 25:46 and Jesus talking about eternal pain, but then you see Paul talking about in Romans, the wages of sin is death.
Yep.
So, is it death as in eternal pain or death as in no more soul?
I don't know if you're gonna like my answer is kind of it leans more on the I think the what you might say like the orthodox side. Well, first off, by the way, I want to address anything about especially afterlife with humility. I'll say that because I
Yeah, yeah.
very much think I seen a lot of people get aggressive with these things as if they know the answer. I would like to put my opinion out there humbly, and I'm still open to learning and growing. I think you already knew that.
Yeah.
But I also um and I'll say this too, I don't think that the Bible is not addressing that in some kind of ways. I just often think it's not the entree that we try to make it, and we make and we do more get ourselves like caught up than actually helping. That being said, I think about hell a lot and I think about heaven a lot. Okay. And I have very big struggles with the cookie cutter Christian perspective of kind of how we view heaven. I don't think the Bible says you're supposed to believe Jesus did a magic trick and then you go to this place called heaven forever and there's like free Chick-fil-A and there's no pain and you're supposed to sing to God like the whole time. I don't believe that, and I don't think that hell is a place where you go where you're it's like a barbecue and you're the meat.
I want to preface before you go on. I wasn't expecting you to have like a full answer. I just wanted to know your opinion. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that and for giving me that space.
yeah.
Now, are you familiar with Jonathan Pajot?
No, sir.
No. Me and David kind of been talking about him a little bit. I'm a big Jonathan Pajot fan. Again, he's more of a I think he's like a Russian Orthodox uh Christian, but they have a view of okay. I'm backing up a little bit. I swear I'm answering the question. Do you know what theosis is from an Orthodox perspective?
I'm assuming the study of God. No.
Kind, not so much. No, it's more of like becoming in union with God, right? And
Ah,
so it's more so what the Protestant will break down into like salvation and then sanctification, almost like it's two processes. Like you get saved. Do you know what I
and then
mean? I do something. It's like I'm on the good side, and then I have this process of progressing towards
yeah,
God, right?
yeah.
Okay, that's sanctification. And it's almost like two different things. Theosis is almost like more so combining it and it's realizing that we are on a journey to be in union with the almighty creator, the logos that we see in the Bible, right? That is it. Now I was gonna get now you gotta stick with me here. I'm still working through some of this, but I definitely don't believe heaven and hell are like spatial places, like a spatial. Because here's the thing too. Here's like we you believe God is outside of space, outside of time. He created these things. Okay,
Hmm.
and heaven is where God is at, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a spatial place though. I don't think God has this space and time that he's outside of, but he also is like hanging out in this spatial place called heaven, that's like in these clouds and whatnot.
I
And
guess to my bad for cutting you off. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Uh, it's not like when that time comes, we just gonna get beamed up or beamed to a place.
yes, exactly. Because it's like, well, hold up,
Hold
where
on.
is that place? And if God created time and space and is outside of it, why is he chilling inside of time and space,
Yeah.
in like a holier space. Do you know what I'm saying? Oh, hold up. Dave, what'd you link right there? I'm trying not to get distracted, but like he linked something good.
Uh, he linked like three things, but send it to me in a Vox though,
I
gang.
just keep talking. You're good.
Oh, yes. He's talking, he's sending you some Jonathan Peugeot stuff. Okay. Um, so there's that. All right. Now, but the same thing, I also don't believe hell is that place. Like just complete separation from God. Well, first off, I would ask you, like, what does separation from God look like? The creator of all things, it is all things. Like, where can you go? Like, so there's a place. So God is is knows all, is all, but there's some place where he's not. How? You know what I mean? Yeah, like I struggle with that. But and even when you say it, you're like, this stuff don't make sense. But if we're being honest, if you say it around another Christian, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's kind of stupid. But that's what we believe. Most, I'm saying we, like the general Christian, like we
Yeah.
believe a lot of crap the Bible don't say. And so I kind of like to start there. I don't believe it's these places. Now does it okay? Now when we get to heaven, and again, this is more of like a orthodox theosis view, but I also don't like that either, too. I don't like that you say certain things and someone's like, even my man Terrence in the building. Good to see you, man. So Terrence, you just walked in a deep convert. My man Keyshawn is deep over here. Okay, he asked me some deep questions on heaven and hell, so I'm like mid sermon. But I do want to introduce y'all to Terrence. Terrence, he just finished the Infinite Starter Kit. Terrence ain't new. Terrence is just, I be telling y'all, man, I got people that are just hard headed that won't come to these calls. Terrence gonna do what the fluff he want to do, and I put a little more pressure on him, and now he's here at the calls though. So glad to have you here, fam. Really, you're just here listening. But once we get into check-ins, you'll kind of see how people do check-ins. But we just want to update on your week. Let us know what went right, what went wrong in your week, and if you have any questions, fire away. But I'll have you go last, Terrence, just so you could see how everyone goes.
Okay, I got you.
Bet. So Keyshawn went first, and he didn't even get into his stuff. He just had a question, and I've been preaching ever since. But all right, so we're backing up, fam. I and this kind of gets kind of deep into kind of like the reality and fabric of life. But I think I'm gonna do my best to try and make it make sense. But
Come on with
life kind of unfolds in fractals, in patterns. And so, do you guys know what a fractal is? Like a fractal is like a pattern that kind of has its own pattern within itself, and you can kind of go into them infinitely. Like when y'all really start to study that, it's it's mind-boggling, okay? Because there are so like we see these patterns, not just like if you look at like the fractals in leaves and trees, it matches like the veins and how our veins move throughout our body. And you'll see similarities between how trees, grow and like different things in our lungs and like how space and stars connect is very similar to like the neural networks in our minds. And so and so I believe like the original, the source of this is the divine logos. It's God. It is the uncreated start to existence. All right. And this is heaven. Okay. Oh man. All right. I'm gonna do my best. I might have some holes and I have to come back for it. But basically, I'm glad Moyo's here for this too. I believe heaven is it's way closer to, we could say, like an ideal, a mindset, a way of living than it is a physical place. And that's how heaven can come to earth. Heaven can almost animate earth because, and they can, that's God's envision for them to overlap, not for there to be like this heaven and then earth, right? And so that's how that can happen because I can't overlap earth with earth. We know that. And that's why they struggled with the kingdom of heaven because anytime a kingdom's overlapped, one of them had to go. And they knew
mm-hmm.
that as they were sitting there in Roman persecution. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't get to, if you come pillage my village, I don't get to be king no more. Do you know what I mean? And so they were expecting that kind of king to show up. to one that's like replaces this stuff and gives me something new. And he was like, nah, the kingdom's here. What you mean? And ain't nothing changed. How heaven here and ain't nothing changed? Because it's not the physical. It is. And here's what's fluffed up though. You're tempted to be like, so wait, are you saying it's not real? And actually,
Yeah.
I'm saying it's realer than even the
It's it
physical world. It is the realest, but it incarnates similar to how we see Jesus, God, incarnate as man. Like heaven is incarnating when heaven gives because again, it's like almost if I were to tell you to just experience love as just a soul floating, it gets a little difficult for you. Now I give you pieces to work with. I give you a wife. I give you friends. I give you a job. Loving becomes a little bit easier. C.S. Lewis is a good read to grasp more of this. Yes.
is that mere Christianity?
Uh, okay. I think everything when you really get it, fam. Me and David were riffing on this a little bit. Even Narnia is so deep. Okay, because we got to back up. We got to understand why is the Bible, especially like in the Old Testament, so many stories. I don't know if anyone's ever been that way. You're like, God, if you're trying to get me the truth, like just tell me, ninja. Like say it straight up. You done really got me rambling, Keyshawn, but we need to back up. What is straight up? Straight up is so dependent on what you're trying to communicate. And I believe the truths that the Bible stories are trying to tell, they're as straight up as they can be. There's no directer way to say it. So here's what I'm talking about. Let's say you want to and this is why the logos is so important, man. Logos is God, divinity. Per it is purpose. It's what gives meaning to anything. Because think about it. Let's talk about the Super Bowl, for example. If you were to describe the Super Bowl, I'm gonna back up a little bit. I keep backing up, but I gotta make this make sense though. So people be like, do you have a literal interpretation of the Bible? That's very common, right? As we're like, oh, are you more, how are you interpreting Genesis? Is it literal? I don't know if it's a podcast. I'm gonna try to find this. Jonathan Peugeot probably breaks this down better, but essentially, Keyshawn, it depends on what point I'm trying to get you to understand about the Super Bowl that will determine how I'm going to describe the Super Bowl. And there's this weird view of life, especially in Americas, because we're so intellectual that like the scientific or the more and detailed is kind of the word, but not really like almost like the more scientific, the more true or factual it is. And that's why sometimes we're obsessed with where's the archaeology of the Bible and all this stuff. And it's like you're missing it. That's not what he's talking about. So let's say the Super Bowl. How would you describe the Super Bowl to somebody and how it went, this most recent one? Yeah, my bad. I muted.
My fault. One team beat the brakes off another one, and in garbage time, they scored a couple points. They got whooped to sleep, and yeah, they lost.
Beautiful. Okay. You described that perfectly. Like anyone that's here in this call has a picture of what you described, right? But, and again, I'm kind of nitpicking here, but you almost didn't say things that are literal, right? You said someone got beat to sleep. You said in garbage time. You know what I mean? Someone could be like, garbage. I didn't see any garbage on the field. You know what I mean? But with how you described that game, you gave the perfect picture into our head for what was happening. But there's so much, there's billions and billions of bits of information that happened during the Super Bowl that you could have focused on. You could have said, maybe you're like someone that really cares about grass and turf and things of that nature. You could have described the Super Bowl just based off what's happening on the turf, but you didn't mention the turf once or the grass once in your description. But you didn't, but an American might hear that and be like, oh, what fruit was it in Genesis? Or was it really a fruit? Or was it really this? And it's like, that's not what they're even talking about. People will go through Genesis and try to make this argument for time and space being created. And it's like, stop, stop. That's not what the author was thinking about. That's not what he was going after. And that would be like, you talk, I think I'm trying to think of Pajot's example. He has one that I really love. It's a boxing match or a fight, right? So if I'm just describing a fight, I'd probably like, especially when it's like on World Star or someone got whooped up. I'm gonna describe it how you did. Like, boy got whooped, he got put to sleep, he got demolished. He didn't really get demolished. I could have described it. His fist went back with the velocity of XYZ, right? And then it came into contact. And I could have gone into all that and you would have lost the meaning of at least what I was trying to get across, right? And so the details that I do leave in and how I tell it determine the purpose and the direction of something. Is that making sense? And so that is why we have patterns in these things that play out in the way that they do. I'm chasing rabbits, but I'm trying to put this all together with as least holes as possible. And so that is why I believe that one, the Bible authors are talking about a deeper truth than we usually ever get because we're stressed on the wrong things. But two, like I think this heaven coming to earth thing isn't in it's it's something that can happen now. Eternal life is something Jesus clearly wants us to have and access now. And this might be a little too deep and take a lot of time unpacking like the patterns and the fractalness, but to get right back to hell, man, I think there's a lot of hell on earth, just like we're trying to have heaven on earth. And I think whatever it is, there's a few things I'm stuck on. If I was to, because I don't even like how you frame the question. I don't know if I just decide between those two. I know those are two popular beliefs, and Grape, I'm gonna throw to you here in a little bit. Um, I think annihilation is closer to maybe like the character of God in a sense, kind of. It still feels a little bit Americanized because it's like sometimes we just add too many human characteristics to God. Like we don't understand the vastness and amazingness of God. That's why I'm using things like the original source and like divine logos, because like we really do think he's like a man with a beard chilling in this spatial heaven, having us do arbitrary things. That is not God. God doesn't find things out. God wasn't like, let me do this, and then Jesus. God isn't like, I'm gonna create Keyshawn and see what happens. He's always known Keyshawn. He's always been there. And so we got to learn how to see it. And hopefully, with how I explained this, helps us read the Bible better. Because sometimes people, I've literally seen it, because the Bible might say the face of God or something. They try to argue that God has a face or these certain things that how else could we just talk about God? That's why, like the Hebrew, they didn't even want to, they were like, basically, the name of God was like breath, and you don't say it because you can't comprehend it. The moment you try to put a label or a name on it, you're losing what God is. And we use analogies, of course, and we use these things, and that's why Jesus talked into so many parables, because certain truths, one, you don't just say them straight, like you can't say them straight up. Like, that's not the most, again, what is straight up though? You know what I mean? That's not the best way to communicate the truth. The truth of the cosmos and how it's set up and how it works, the best way to describe that is the Garden of Eden. Not to say this is how this works and this is how this, because like it's things are so complex, and as Americans we just try to strip things down so much that we lose the true meaning of it. And so okay, but I was gonna say is I think it's closer to like something where if you do die and there is like some hell experience. So basically I think like when you die, it's very close to like the second coming and Jesus coming back. I think that will almost kind of reconcile itself as you're pulled out of time, but we'll probably be here another hour with that. And so I think that very much complicates hell, especially if you think of it as a place where like, oh, I messed up and now I'm about to go be punished for forever and ever. Like think about it. Like when you really understand the character of God, why would he want to do that? What does he get out of that? Of you just sitting there sizzling, you know what I mean? You were alive for 70 years, fam. What is 70 years to God? And I think we've done a lot of painting a lot of human characteristics on God to the point where we've lost them. And so, did that make sense? Hopefully, I was trying to unpack a lot of confusing theology because there's a lot of things that when we believe that way, a lot of things in Christianity just seem random, and we do not understand why. And I'm a lot of us are too okay with that, if you ask me. But go ahead, Greg.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, that conversation gets so crazy. So I think I think what I'm about to share might kind of land somewhere with what you said in some aspect because I love C.S. Lewis's thoughts when it comes to him kind of diving into those conversations because it just puts into a deeper perspective of how much you actually are encountering hell earthly and that it's not just a destination you arrive at. You know, just like heaven isn't just a random place we all end up. You heard pastors say, I'm gonna be surprised if I get there, just like I'm gonna be surprised at the people I see who I didn't think was gonna make it. I think there's parts of that that's true. But I highly doubt that the apostles, the disciples in the scriptures that we read about were second guessing if they had a crown of glory waiting on them on the other side. I just highly doubt that. The way Paul was talking, the way Peter was talking, I just highly doubt that. Right. So I'm gonna share this quote, but I think I'll end it there. The first thing I want to share is The Great Divorce is a writing that C.S. Lewis has that gives you a visual of basically somebody. I'm forgetting the names that he uses and all those kinds of things, but the concept is that there's a bus that travels between heaven and hell. And the individuals that are on the bus are, I believe, taking a trip from hell for a period of time, and they are getting a glimpse of what they've missed in terms of heaven. And it's really interesting because the whole dialogue and conversation happens in between. You arrive at a point in the writing where he's speaking about a chameleon of some sort. I think it's a chameleon or there's something along the lines that rests on an individual's shoulder who's like supposed to be this character in the text. And the mere fact that he could not put it down in order to enter into to even just step, like if we were to envision heaven as like a house and there was lawn in front of that house, to even get near it, there had to be certain parts of you that just couldn't even exist. So when we're talking about selfishness, we're talking about greed, we're talking about all these different things that make us human. Those very things couldn't even exist in the breath of heaven because then in some aspect it's in a way you're consumed by your own sin, humanity, wrongdoing, whatever it is. You can't even really encounter the love of God that just literally is the environment of heaven. So like the environment of heaven, there are just certain things. This is why scripture says flesh and blood cannot enter into the kingdom. I like to interpret that in the aspect where there's certain things about you that if you were to just travel in your humanity, you wouldn't even exist because the environment of heaven excludes those very humanistic, fleshly, selfish things that we all inhabit and that we all walk. So I think in a way, C.S. Lewis touches on that in that book. I encourage you to read it. I think it's really dope. Um, but this is a quote that we get from another writing that he had and I think it ties into the whole aspect of experiencing hell on earth. And again, it's not a place that you just wait to arrive at, just like heaven isn't. There's a reason Jesus says he brought the kingdom earthly, right? Like there's so I can experience heaven now. This isn't a I'm just here and surviving until Jesus come back. Like I can actually experience heaven now. So this is the quote. He says this: to enter heaven is to become more human than you ever succeeded in being on earth. To enter hell is to be banished from humanity. What is cast or cast itself into hell is not a man, it is remains. Like that's crazy. It is remains. To be complete man means to have the passions obedient to the will and the will offered to God. To have been a man, to be an ex-man or damned ghost would presumably mean to consist of a will utterly centered in itself and passions utterly uncontrolled by the will. Right. So I think of that statement, I go back to the garden. Like Adam was a human being in the presence of God, But what's so different between Adam before the fall and Adam after the fall is that in the garden, he was completely consumed by the presence of God. I would like to think that all Adam really could do in such a, well, maybe I won't say that because there was still temptation that happened in there. I'm not going to get into the weeds of that, but there is a possibility that when he was first formed and it was just him and God, that's kind of all he knew. All he knew, all that's all how he operated. And so I think there's just a different stratosphere and level to what it actually means to be heavenly, be hellish, but then also what it could look like to, obviously, when we die, what does eternity look like? Um, that might be all I have, but I think those studies are so crazy. It's mind blowing. It's scary. Um, but I do think there are some aspects. I don't know, because you also have to ask too, like, so the rich man that Jesus, now it's crazy. Jesus uses this as an analogy to describe the Pharisees in that context. So that's a huge part to this. However, there could be legitimate questions like, oh, well, is hell kind of like that, where Buddy is aware, lifts up his eyes, and he can see heaven from a distance, but he can't reach it. How crazy is that? But then you also talk about this too. C.S. Lewis says this too, that hell is also a form of God's grace. What the fluff? In the sense of this, that he gives the people who do not want communion with God what they want, which is an eternity separated from him. So it's so, you get into the weeds. So I'm done. I don't want to fall into that rabbit hole myself, but I know that might have just messed you up quite a bit. But take it where you can.
I'm following. Like what you say the book was, The Great Divorce.
The Great Divorce, yeah. I think it's a pretty good reading.
Okay.
C.S. Lewis, yeah.
I'm down for that. I'm down for the I'm willing to take it on. I guess what I'm hearing y'all saying is we kind of miss the forest for the trees. Like we focus so much on minute details of whether we focus so much on details that we miss the grand scheme of things. So that's kind of what Jesus. That's not kind of what Jesus was telling the Pharisees. That is what Jesus was telling the Pharisees. That is all the stories that led up to us needing Jesus in the first place. And I guess like we kind of like we came from Eden, we failed, we got a chance to go back, and we just kind of reverting back. So it's kind of like it's a special term for it. Like we going back to point zero, going back to continuum. I think that's what it is. But yeah, I sort of understand it. And I mean, like I said, I wasn't expecting a full answer. I wasn't expecting y'all to have an answer. I think it was just more of a discussion point. But
Yeah,
I
and probably
appreciate
part of
that.
what
I don't
part
know.
of what I'll add, because I think you are on to. I think, yes, sometimes we get very caught up in like the afterlife and the crazy deep arguments so much that, because clearly the Bible is not all about that. Like it's very much focused on before you die. Like that's clearly the main part. But while I was explaining the fractals and the same reasons I think the Bible mentions heaven, hell, and some sort of experience after death is because they have context, but not like they're the main thing. It might be like maybe mentioning a home team or an away team. Like it might matter that your team is home or away and where you're at, but that it only has so much of an impact on the actual game of football. At the end of the day, we're trying to worry about football. And the only time we mention the home or away is for how it might actually impact football. But what if we get to talking about the city and we're talking about all the things that aren't having to do with football? We're like, yeah, it's a home game in LA, but we're not talking about anything football related. We're talking about the city and fires and all this stuff. Maybe that's kind of how I feel with this, is like people will get so caught up in the afterlife as if they're trying to solve some crazy mystery that won't affect the game at all. And it's like, oh, but the Bible mentions these things. And I think the context of the Bible mentioning them is for the more life part of things. Does that make sense with that analogy? Hopefully that didn't break down. And that's why I was explaining the fractals and giving you thoughts on like both why I think we have clues for the afterlife inside of this life, but also trying to break down some very limiting beliefs about the afterlife. I think it's more of an Eastern perspective, but I think it's very much true. Sometimes it's easier to get closer to God and describe what God is by describing what he's not. Like, this is not God. And sometimes it's easy to be like, and sometimes I feel like that's how the motives work at a deep level. You know, we talked about motives being deep and intentions being a little bit more surface level. Sometimes that's almost how, like, that's how subtle the motives are. Like, it don't tell you a whole sentence. That's what the intentions are. The motives are just like, nah, you know this wrong. Yeah, this is selfish, deep, deep, deep down. Or yeah, no, this is good. This is pure. And and so that's why I was trying to just explain kind of like the pattern of like you can kind of just tell it sounds so weird at first, but the more you kind of catch on to this and you can see the patterns in life and you see it in scripture, that's why I was trying to answer it from that perspective of like more so no matter what hell is, even if you get it a little bit wrong off before you die, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is understanding on the fact that you could be living heaven and earth. I'm sorry, hell and heaven right now, very much right now. And in the same way, there's an eternal life that Jesus came for that is now. I think there's an eternal punishment that we can feel now. And you guys know that. But what's animating that is the same God. Like the same thing that has the people that hate God and people that hate life and has them angry. It's that same power. It's just like you, like there's people that you might that might not like you, and your kindness is what like the Bible talks about, you know, being kind to an enemy was like lumping burning coals on their head, you know. It's like it's that love of God, that C.S. Lewis vibe that Sean was talking about, that like that's whatever it is, and we use a lot of analogies and whatnot, whatever hell experience that there might be after death, I think it's very similar to the one here that's animated by God and it is of choice and it's not something that's like forced or unfair in any kind of way. It would like very much be like me walking into an oven right now. That kind of vibe. Does that make sense? And I was trying to leave it as practical as possible. But even as I'm talking out, like there's about 8 more videos I want to send you, but hopefully that suffices for now. But that's a very deep thing. Yeah, yeah.
Great job, Bishop.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I could talk about that stuff all day. Is there a question, David?
Yeah.
Or a thought? Yep.
It was about the hell thing. You said it's like a choice, like imagine if you walked into an oven. But do people then get the choice to walk back out of the oven and towards God?
I'm gonna ask you like this. From your experience on Earth, does it feel like that?
Yes. That's why I don't like the idea, or I think it's unreasonable when it's like, oh, when you die, that's it. Like you're hell forever. Like I don't think a loving God would keep it that way.
Do you feel the immense amount of love sometimes when you walk out the oven in shame and God's still like, I got you, fam. You
Yeah.
good. Aren't you
That's
almost kind of surprised? Like, fam, you ain't locked the door this time behind me? What you mean? And now think of some of the humans you know and how they love and things that you expect from them. Who you think is more likely to not let you walk out the oven? And which one do you think created that theology?
yeah, the humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you feel, so I wanna get clarity on this for myself. So you feel that in some aspects, when you die, there isn't that cutoff point that we've all envisioned in some aspects. Like God is actually having a gracious, loving moment in such a space that people could actually come from an eternity without him to a place of eternity with him after death. Is that kind of
Yes. Yes. Yep. But I
That's
also
so.
don't think that but there's a lot of things, man. Hopefully, like I'm not just hopefully you're noticing like when you start to ponder some of this stuff, like you can't just take away your old view of hell or even just your old view of heaven. You start reimagining how you looked at God and how you looked at humans and life and purpose. And so, and that's kind of what I was getting into. I was like, some might call it more orthodox and more theosis. And we just love to label things, man. And I love it so that we can talk about certain things and have good conversations. But sometimes we almost label ourselves out of God. And we're so curious about the argument. It's like, oh, interesting. Are you more new earth or old earth? And I'm like, ah, we're come back. Here comes all those labels again. But
Okay. I think this is there because I got
uh
questions all day just to have bounce up conversation. We got to. I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, interesting.
I think we will because again, and I don't want to start throw more questions in there. And Jeremy, I want to get to yours too. But it's like, ah, man.
Because I think about, bro, like, all right, classic verse, right? John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him should not perish.
Well,
Should not.
yeah.
So we have to ask, and it's not to assume what perishing means, but I would be curious. Well, what does perishing
And he
really
gave his son for the who for who,
for the world?
not just American Christians
True.
that knew about
True.
Jesus. And
True.
so here another thing that I was like, I don't know if I want to get into it, but we just because it's really unraveling our entire theology and then bringing it and sewing it back together because it is like,
Oh, so wait, I'm sorry. So are you assuming that, or not assuming, but you're stating that because this is an Eastern book, so how they envisioned perhaps what that could have been is completely different. Of course it is.
yes,
From
yes, you're
how we
starting to get
interpret
onto it.
what
You're starting to
after.
get onto it.
Yeah,
So let me
absolutely.
ask you this: what happens to uh the Hindu before Jesus? Because like Christianity and even Judaism clearly didn't start human existence and religion. Do you know what I
Right. So
mean?
and these are questions that I've legit like had conversations with people of that faith and just be like, yeah, so like Christianity hasn't always been in existence to stem from Judaism. Judaism hadn't always been in existence either. Its beginning didn't start from the
But
beginning.
what has the divine logos? And
Yeah, it just mm. Because you do have to ask that, like,
we
okay,
might need to
so
have a whole call just for this, man,
yeah,
because yes, this is my thing. I think God is doing a very unique thing in time. I actually do believe in the resurrection. I consider myself a Christian. Do you know what I mean? Not in the same way that people like to throw that
not
cap
in the American
on
term.
and
It's more like
yeah,
I'm
you
a
know what I
believer.
mean?
I'm a follower.
I believe that I think there's a lot of things you have to answer about what happened on that cross. There's some weird, spooky evidence around that. I think some real stuff happened. I think scripture is real in a way that I don't think it's just a human fabrication.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? I think this is really divine inspired. But that's why I was trying to back up how we're reading it. Do you know what I mean? And bringing everything back. Like, what are they really saying? Not, and we're just always trying to prove a point. And that's why I was even trying to back this up and make it as practical as possible. Because I remember the days when I was studying this, not so I could have a relationship with the creator being of all knowing, so I could be better in debates. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, we've missed it, bro. So that's why I'm like, yes, I love this question. At the same time, I hate it for most of the reasons people want to talk about it. And then we wonder why we can't get no solid understanding on it. Cause like you're just so busy trying to prove Islam wrong that you can't see the divine logos and how he is inseparable. Like how do you escape him? And that's why when I was getting into hell, I was like, I think whatever fiery flames that could potentially animate it, it would have to be God. Like, but yes, like I said, we have to get into all the attributes of God, how we're because we have these little random theologies that they're so arbitrary and we don't even know why we do them. And we don't understand some of the symbolism and even like little things like baptism. Do you know what I mean? Like you just, I'm not gonna unpack that here, but it's like you just ask a random Christian why you get baptized. They don't know. They don't get it, and they're trying to do these magic tricks, and we're trying to, and we didn't pray a million things away. God ain't taking it away. We don't try to switch up nothing. We just like, no, I'm gonna just pray for this to the day I die. Like, can't none of y'all call me more than 10 times. I don't answer without you being like, the number is probably, I got the wrong number. But we just have like diluted our lives to like chasing passions and trying to get God to pray things away. And just when you zoom out like we're doing now, you hopefully you guys are seeing some of the theology just crumble in front of you. And it's like, there's a different way, but that's good though. Me and David be talking. We were talking about the parable of the sower. And what does Jesus say about that parable? Um, Great. He talks about this is one to understand all the parables. This is like a meta parable. And it's like you can be thinking, why does Jesus speak in parables? Because it's like kind of like I was saying, that's almost the realest way to do it. But the seed that landed on a path, right?
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't take. But what is that saying? Do you know what I mean? Some people are just like, of course, he's talking about the gospel, but it's more of like a structure of the cosmos too, because Grape has a way of thinking about football. He has a favorite team already. Do you know what I mean? I could tell him to be a Cowboys fan, Eagles fan, whatever. He's just not going to take it. Obviously, I'm using a fun thing here. Let's say someone has a view on sexuality. Someone has a view on hell, on how things are. Oh, hell. Let's say someone has a view on hell, and they've been taught this whole thing their whole life, and they've heard it. Let's be honest, though. Out of 10 Christians that believe, 100 Christians that believe something, how many of them really got that from reading the Bible? Or did they get it just going up to church or half going to church and having people tell them something? They didn't actually go in and study it themselves.
Probably
But
like
what?
1 out of 10.
Come
One out
on,
of
man.
every 10.
I was. That's
Yeah.
why I had to go to 100. I think it's closer to 99 out of 100, at least from my examinations. Because anyway, that's that. But how do you get that hard ground, that path, that purpose, that way of already thinking? How do you get seed into it? You got to break it up. It's got to be broken up. You got to till it. You got to work it. And that's kind of what we're doing now. Like some of the things, it's hard to make sense of even maybe some of the things I said, but we got to at least be willing to tear down the stuff that doesn't make sense and break up those limiting beliefs. And then some of the good stuff can start to fall in. But I'll leave that there for now. Jeremy, see your hands up, sir. Keyshawn was not lying, bro. This is still just his turn. We're gonna speed run everyone else. I promise. My fault.
Hey,
But go
dog,
ahead, Jeremy.
I'm confused, bro. So if you saying that hell is not like necessarily a fiery furnace, why does Jesus like I have two questions about like scripture. Like for the starters, like why does he refer to hell as a place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth? And then if you could then walk out of this like furnace, right? Like just given God's character, why is it that like he said that in that day some will come to me saying, Lord, Lord, have I not done this, that, and the other in your name? And then I'll say, depart from me, for I never knew you. Like how do we rationalize that?
Were you here when I was talking about the literal meaning of things?
Um, I may have been like I caught a glimpse of it, but I'm driving.
You
I was
would,
on the way to
yeah.
drop off my
So no.
stepdad at the truck.
Okay. Before I turn this to a whole Bible study, again, I'm not saying this is a necessarily literal meaning. Do you think everything, that not just Jesus, every author, Old Testament, New Testament, when they said it, it was a one for one
Like
description?
everything?
Yes.
I think certain things, probably not everything.
Right. And maybe the things, do you believe that when you die, you're going to experience something that is probably like nothing you've experienced here?
Absolutely.
And so if I was going to talk about something I've experienced, but you've never experienced, am I more likely to speak one for one or less likely to speak one for one?
Probably less likely.
Do you know what I mean? Because you don't have a one for one on it. And I think another thing we really got to be careful with Christians, man. So we treat the Bible more of like a spell book. Do you know what I mean? We go to it. the Bible says a lot, fam. There are a lot of verses. I don't know. Someone might have to Google. I don't know how many total verses there are in the Bible. Great. You're supposed to know off the top of your head. Kind of crazy. You might not be holy, but maybe you could Google it. However many verses there are in the Bible, right? It's so often that we'll like get these whole like rationales for life, and we'll be like, oh, but this says this very literally. And you got to go back to my thing on literally though. But again, it's just like with whatever agenda we're trying to prove, it's like I can see this clearly, like kind of saying that. But then we also understand we don't understand the other thousands or whatever, you know, things that the Bible is trying to say. And it's God didn't write it in a way where like he's making these points, but like certain things and characteristics, like it's only in this line of text. You know what I mean? So it's like these themes of the cosmos and how it's set up, especially something like this on a level of like heaven, hell, these are continual themes and fractals that we see throughout scripture. And so we got to be careful. I'm trying to give you like a short answer on this. That's why we got to be careful just being like getting your whole theology around hell from those two verses. When the whole heaven and hell is painted into the cosmos because they're almost like polarities. And Jesus and the Old and New Testament authors are speaking on heaven and hell throughout the whole thing, even times when you don't know it. For example, in the garden. And so we have to learn to get our theology a little bit more refined. And so, because that's such an American thing. It's like, and some of these authors are writing, assuming that you have so much more knowledge than the average American has too. Like you're just not a dummy spiritually. And so that's why we do struggle when we have these like compartmentalized theologies that we just kind of bumper sticker together because we grabbed this verse and ran with it. Does that make sense? Because I'm saying like that's not how the Bible was written, where it's like, oh, we have like a rule book. Like, oh, look, we have these two lines. You need to understand even those verses, man, were written around other verses that are laying on top of meaning. But yet here you came and it's like, well, why isn't this directly talking about hell? Do you see the struggle in building our philosophies and theology that way?
I do, but then it raises another question, like, why then, like, why die for the sin of the world if you could just walk out the furnace afterwards? Like, what's the point?
Man, well, okay, we'll ask it this way. Why? Let's ask questions on the other end. Why do you get tortured on a grill, on a barbecue where you're the meat for an eternity if you have not heard Jesus or know the name of Jesus? Or even though, let's say you did, but just maybe just like you someone that had a struggle and then, you got hit by a bus before you figured it out. Why? Like what does God get out of that?
Nothing. But what does God get out of anything if he's peak? Like, what does God get out of like us serving him if he's already like he has it all?
That now you're getting closer to what God is like. And then so why do you think you exist then? It's not to benefit him, right?
I have no clue.
Okay, see, do you see why I'm backing it up? These are questions you want to build up till you even get to hell. It's almost like maybe you're watching a football game with your daughter and she's like, you know, why did he dance in the end zone or something? She's trying to understand something so on the fringe of uh of the game, right? But she doesn't understand some of the core rules and the core aspects of it. And I think that's why I was trying to bring you like there's so many questions because it's like I can see how much is assumed in the way that you're even asking questions that are almost deeper. So you're worried about being separated from God for eternity, but I think we still need to work on the picture of God. Just even worrying on being worried about being separated from. Because what's the opposite of love?
I would say hate.
It's actually fear, but that's what would motivate hate. You know what I mean? And so it's like, what do you think right now, especially with how you're describing, what do you think is the catalyst to serve God? It's
Well,
actually
for
not.
me,
Well,
like,
no, just with that hell theology that you have there, it's like this ultimate goodness and pureness. That whole theology is almost driven off of fear. I think that should ask a lot. I should fire off a lot of questions in your head.
it sure does. Because honestly, that's how I came to faith. I was like, man, I don't want to go to hell. For like, if hell's as bad as what they saying it is,
Now
I'm
think about
trying.
it. Now, do you think that? And I'm trying to be quick here, and I hate to cut you off. For that, I just know we've been on this a long time, but I would actually love to be on this for a few more hours. But like, do you see how that makes it kind of struggle for you to stay consistent with some of the things that you're doing when you're driven off of fear?
Yes.
And you can see how love isn't even possible when that is the core driver. Now, you can have some superficial, again, it's maybe might be easier for you to rationalize this when you talk through like a human relationship. But think about it. If you were only with Maya out of fear, and even the times you might have stayed, it doesn't even have to be fear of her directly, but just like of consequences. Think of how shaky and how unpure that relationship is.
Yes.
Come on, man. Yeah. So,
But
but
that
I
still
like
doesn't answer
this.
my question though, like of what's the point then? Because that cross seems like the worst thing that somebody could experience. So why do that? Like for what?
Okay, so let's move. Let's bring the fractal in a little bit. Do you understand? And I'm not trying to take what Jesus did on the cross. Like I said, I actually think it happened. I think it had significance in the cosmos. But even in your living life, do you understand just from the conversations we've had around the infinite game, the benefit that you receive from being able to look at this infinite game for the game that it is and not cling to everything that is Jeremy? Do you see
Yes,
that freedom that it provides?
absolutely.
And do you see how that is? It's not something that like is literally something you don't work for. Like it's not something. If you do work, it's just letting go and receiving. And it's not like you have to go into like a back room and build up that happiness and peace that you felt at times when you let go. You can understand that, right?
Hmm.
And then on the other end, you know what it's like to feel in that hell of clinging to your passions and suffering. And you know, even at the peak, like just the torment that that has been on your experience of life.
Yes.
And I think on a fractal level, I think that's where you start with your understanding. Instead of moving and serving God out of fear and having the yo-yoing like you've experienced, I think you start with that fractal experience of the heaven and hell on earth that you experience. And that's very real and very relevant. Instead of trying to solve a problem or an understanding on the afterlife that honestly isn't necessarily relevant right now. And I say right now because it's all fractal. Of course, it makes sense. And I want your mind to go out there, but just not in the way you're trying to rush it because it's, yeah, I'll leave that there. Does that make sense? At least a little bit for you?
No. Kind a
Well,
little
why
bit, but
doesn't it
like,
though? Maybe we can start there. Why doesn't it?
because like it's still like fr what do I have freedom from them? Because in the infinite game sense, like I understand of like not clinging to things allows me the freedom to like move through life with an open hand. Where if something doesn't happen the way that I would have wanted it to, I'm still okay. But you know, the cross seems pretty extreme, and it seems like the whole purpose behind it was to save me from sin. What's the big deal about sin? Why is sin such an issue if I could just like walk out this oven with my head held in shame and say like I'm sorry, and God's
Thank
gonna
you.
be like,
This
yeah,
is
you're
such a
good.
perfect example. Like, do you see how much of your whole motivation is around not dying and hell and fear? Because you're like, yo, I know what it's like to be at peace and have these things going around me that's crazy and experience that joy of life, but that's not good enough. Like, I want to know that what I didn't get tortured for the rest of my life. Is that does that make it more beneficial to you? Like you want to be, like you want to know that you survived, other people didn't, and they're burning and you didn't.
Nah, it's not even so much that. Like,
Are you willing to just take that upside?
yes,
And so you've experienced that opposite of that peace and that hell on earth.
yes.
Why is maybe explain to me why is that not enough?
I
Because
wouldn't even say that it's
what
not
do you think, what
enough.
is the better? So it's almost like, all right, so there's like a worse, a hell, like when you die. What's the heaven when you live, like when you die?
I've always looked at it as like 70 and sunny type every day where like everything is cool.
See, like that's what I'm saying. You got to back up. You're trying to juggle things that, of course, they don't make sense. So you think God is out of time and space, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
and that's where God is at in heaven. And when you die, you go to that place that's out of time and space, but it is a place of time and space where it's like cloudy and there's Chick-fil-A, but God hangs out there in time, in space, but he created time and space.
Yes.
Do you see? Okay, see, that's why I'm saying we got to break all that theology down. We got to rebuild the theology of heaven. Um, and then that helps us understand hell as well. So, man, I don't think you were there for that too. We were talking about heaven a little bit more too before we got into the literal meaning. So,
Yeah, I was not here for that. Like when I came in, you was already kind of preaching.
yeah. So, do you see how that's a tough, like, you have so many more questions if that's heaven. You have a lot of questions.
Yeah, how'd you come to this place of understanding? Because we're already an hour deep into this call, and I don't like. Was Keyshawn the first turn? Was he the first
Yes,
name called?
yes,
Yeah, word.
yes.
So we're already an hour deep on like one on the one, and we still got what like 8 other heads here. So like, how did you come to this place so that I could do my due diligence and like understand this a bit better?
Man, that's a great question, but it's not that complicated. Like, I swear, you guys do it all day, every day on random things. Like, if some of y'all go have a bad day on Call of Duty, you're like watching videos and you keep trying and you're like resilient, or maybe it's Madden. I just do that exact same thing, but for this, I read some and I'm like, or even that, I go to the church, I read the Bible, and I do what the pastor say. And I'm like, fam, I've been praying on this same thing that, like, this whole transactional, like, hey, I do good, God, you give me good, and I make life the way I want. Like, I was like, this stuff don't work. Just like if your play don't work in Madden, right? You look up stuff on it. You guys have seen my book collections. Man, Chat GBT sick of me. You know what I mean? I stay with questions and stuff like that. So it's just like there's no one thing. There's no one book I could give you. There's no one podcast. It's all of that. It's like if you desperately want to understand all this, you'll get it because you're gonna. But I've also been doing it for a long time, and so I go down rabbit holes. Things don't make sense. I apply to this, and I don't feel like I from your question, I got the perspective that you appreciate where I'm at, but I also don't feel like I've arrived at some, holy guru status. It's the game, man. So,
Yeah, like I don't know, bro. Like it's really fucking my head up right now. I'm not gonna lie to you, because like it's like everything that I knew about this whole Christianity thing is just fell apart. Like,
but that's good. And now, like, as you actually start reading, man, you got to go back and hear what I was saying about literally. It'll just make sense too, though, because it's like I'll try to send you some follow-up videos if I can. Maybe some sermons, some lectures, but like this is what it's, and it's not that you were wrong. This is part of just more maturing. Because I'm also, what I'm also, you got to be careful too. I'm very disappointed in the American church for the most part, but I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not even saying it's evil. I'm just saying it's immature. And the experiences that you had at that level were very real. They were just immature. And there's a deeper, more mature place to get with it. And you would have never got to those mature places without this. And that's the same way, like that's why passion is ah, y'all really open up the theology. And that's why passion has its place in the cosmos. It's the starting place for all of us. And so just like immaturity and pampers and peeing on ourselves is the start, it's okay. But you definitely got to break down some of those misconceptions, and we rebuild them.
Man, and I agree. It's like tough because I'm a person like a lot of this stuff I've been questioning a lot, especially since you had me start reading a chapter a day instead of daily. I get into it, I'm like, none of this makes
This is
sense.
not what y'all act like, in church.
No,
Yeah.
I was gonna get into it. I went to a funeral with my girlfriend this past Saturday. The pastor literally pretty much told everybody who was at the funeral, if you took a lighter and you put it your hand above it, that would determine if you gonna go to heaven or hell, depending on if you could stand the heat of this lighter under your head. And I'm sitting there like, me and my girlfriend are looking at each other like, this is insane. Like this, and like people in the church are eating this up, and I'm like, are y'all like this is crazy? This man literally almost just told you to burn yourself to decide if you were gonna go to heaven or hell.
Bro, a good exercise when y'all are in church or talking about faith and whatnot, don't use no Christianese terms. David actually gave me a really good answer earlier today, but I pushed him. I was like, say that again. Take out all the Christianese. He ain't like it. He was like, because you actually have to be practical, and we expose to ourselves how much we don't know about things. But that's good because then you can go out and search and learn. But okay. Last thing I'm gonna say though, because as you're doing this, Jeremy, it's this is the beautiful part about it. It's not about being so smart that you grasp it, because that's almost what we're doing as Americans, and that's why we miss God. And now, okay, I'm gonna back up the little conversation a little bit, just because what I was saying is sometimes people will be like, oh, do you have a more literal interpretation of scripture? Right? As if like literal means like accepting it the real way, like the truth way, and non-literal is like the abstract, esoteric meaning. And what I was saying is that like based off how someone's, especially in the Bible, how they're describing a topic, that is the most literal and best way to describe it. And I had Keyshawn describe the Super Bowl to me. He was like, oh, one of the teams got demolished. They got beat to sleep. But then in garbage time, another team came back. That is a very good way of describing the Super Bowl. It gave you a clear picture of what happened. But someone could say that's not literal, but it's like it is. What is it? Scientific isn't more literal, or more detail isn't literal. We could have gotten so scientific in describing the Super Bowl that you didn't even have that picture in mind. You wouldn't even have known what the score was. We could have got so literal. We could have talked about the air pressure, the pressure on the balls, the cleats that people were wearing. These were things that happened during the Super Bowl. But when you are just by the fact that you're even describing something, you have a purpose behind it. And I can't even get too deep into it now, but that's how we know there's a logos and there's meaning in things. Like you even go to describe and have language, you're already packing in purpose. So if you were to describe the game a certain kind of way, we can always find a hidden meaning or what you're trying to describe, or the based off how you're describing it, we can find the meaning from it. And so you could talk about the velocity of someone running and how high they jumped and never even get to the score. Is that a more literal translation of the game? Well, it depends on who you're talking to. Are you talking to, it's not Spalding that does the football. Who does the football? I can't remember who does it. Spalding is basketball.
Wilson.
Who? Wilson. You know what I mean? Wilson probably does care about the pressure versus in the ball in the first quarter versus the fourth quarter. And maybe someone investing in Wilson might care. So it's just about how are you describing the thing. And so when you're going back and you're reading not just the words of Jesus, but all these stories and these authors, like what are they really getting at? That's what we're after. And so the Garden of Eden and the eating the fruit and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that was the best way to describe whatever took place. And here's the thing too. Sometimes the Bible seems oversimplistic, but that's also part of distilling truth and preserving it through time. So like if you were to be like, yo, I just got out of, what's the make and model of your car, Jeremy, that you just got out of?
That one was my mom's car. I think it's like a 13 Chevy Tahoe.
Right. So you could say that, you could write your scripture on, I just got out of that Tahoe, and you could talk about all the details of the house that you're walking into. And that is very specific to this time period, America, whatever, because it's like this, that make and model. Or you could say, I got out the vehicle. Right. And that has a lot more of a lasting impact throughout time. And so even that has you pondering on different things. Like when they're talking about mountains in scripture, pay attention. They're not just telling you that there was a mountain. And they're like, hold up, was there actually a mountain there? Most likely, yes, but you're almost just missing it if you're just looking for a hill. There's symbolism in things. And so, yes. I'll leave that there because it's already an hour in. But yes,
Bro, but that makes me then like, because we could all agree that like being a follower of Jesus, if you don't like the term Christian, is difficult, right? Like this isn't an easy walk
but why do you think that?
because there's a level of self-denial that you have to carry with you in order to actually genuinely be a follower.
I don't think that's a truth of the cosmos. I think that is a truth of experience. I also think Jesus' burden is light. His yoke is light.
But it's still a burden, albeit a light one.
A yoke. It's a yoke. Do you know what that is? That's like a control.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
then I'm trying to back you up. I'm not trying to get into like the spell game either. It's like, but it says this at one point because it's like, yeah, it says that, but what is it saying? But go ahead to your point. I do think
Now,
it can be difficult at times. Yeah.
so like if it's just like I could like live ratchet and then walk out the fire anyways, what's the point of even like doing this? Like, what's the point of serving God and living a difficult life of like
Yeah, Fluff,
servitude?
you
Like,
just
what's
missed everything I was saying. The life he came for you to have abundantly now, not when you die. And then also, what did you just say? I lost it. You triggered me, but then you triggered me again. That triggered away my first trigger. Like you ever seen someone get knocked out in the UFC and they get hit again and they wake up? It was like one of
Brian
those
Ortega?
vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, word.
exactly. Yeah. Fluff, what did you say? You were like, what's the point?
What's
Yeah.
the point of living in servitude? Like, what, like, why, if I could just be ratchet, like, and
Oh,
drop,
okay.
yeah, yeah,
And the
word.
ratchet, that's more you just being able to be ratchet is closer to like the theology that you hold. Cause it's just like you think you raised your hand once at an altar call, you're saved, and you be fluffing up knowingly, like you be doing it. Don't act like you're on the opposite, like you've sacrificed and lived a life
Nah,
of
for sure.
purity. No, you take advantage of your theology. You're like, I know Jesus forgives me. And I'm gonna do this passion. I know coach is saying all this stuff, and I know I'm living in hell right now. But ultimately, I'm out of the hell, the fiery hell. And so I'm good. Because eventually I'm gonna die. I didn't do nothing. And it's just chill and free Chick-fil-A. And that's why you almost feel cheated. Because you're like, well, hold up. I did my ceremony. I said I raised my hand. I said Jesus is real. What you mean there's more to it. I don't get to just get out of hell free. And what about the other people? They got it. They still got to go to hell. I said I believe, but that ninja need to go to hell, and I need to get free Chick-fil-A. Like it's a weird theology, man, that you're carrying, and it's very manipulative, both on God's end and your end. God's like, bro, for real, be good to me. If not, I got this system that's gonna cook you for the rest of forever. And there's a reason it feels arbitrary, and I want you to kind of rebuild some of that. We here for questions, but it's in there. It really is in there. And I think it's more about, I think once you start to understand your walk with God, it's gonna ripple out. And a lot of these things that you're struggling with will make more sense.
Yeah, y'all don't see
Yeah,
like
you don't
the
need a water
wheels
break.
turning. Like, y'all see the wheels turning.
Okay,
Like, you
fam. You
talking
know
and
what's
I'm
crazy
hearing,
though?
but it's like not clicking.
I think all of y'all have got this box at one point where you're like, maybe I took a while to get back to you or something, and you were like, "Yo, don't. I'm sorry I bothered you," or maybe you sent me like a double up message, and you were like, I don't mean to be a bother. And that's why I always respond to y'all like, "Fam, what the fluff? This is all I think about." Like when y'all, I got a funny story about this. I got to tell y'all how I even know about this. I actually learned through my son, but while y'all thinking about cooking with Kaya, okay, you know what I mean, or um Glorilla or whatever, y'all watching the Kai Sinat stream, you know what I mean? I'm being a nerd. I'm like, I'm talking to Chatman, you know what I mean? And I'm watching a sermon or something. And it's like, so please, I love talking about this stuff, man. I don't need no water break. If any of y'all got Vox follow-ups, send them. Come on, man. I love this kind of stuff. All right. But BZ and Ant's gotta go, y'all. Ain't got a lot going on. But I want to open it to questions if there's any quick questions. But as y'all see, with each one of these, more come, but that's good. That's good. Like, it's going to get you somewhere. I promise you it will. Poor Jeremy. And this is why I'm slow with this stuff. Because at a point, I feel like I'm telling people that like Santa ain't real. It's kind of fluffing up the theology, but that's good, bro. Like you want something more effective. But here's another thing. We do need another meeting on this. But what's crazy though, like Jeremy, if you really pay attention, this is what I've been kicking to you. Like this, everything I'm putting the scripture and the cosmos behind, I've done the work to try to distill it and make it just a simple game that you play. And I promise you, just because you didn't go to the altar and do all this crazy stuff, you're maturing spiritually, man. Way more than you are with that weak theology, the arbitrary one. So
Do
yeah.
you think maybe? No, I'm not even going. All right, we'll
I
drop
kind
it.
of want to hear it. I'm not gonna answer it, but let me hear the question.
I was gonna say, do you think maybe like my cause for like because it sounds like the all the challenges and like just teachings on passion that you've been trying to kick to me, do you think the reason maybe I don't walk in that is because of like my theology and I can't hold the two at the same
But
time?
listen to what I'm telling. Thank you. Yes, yes, you're preaching. But that's the parable of the sower, man. Like, yes, like you are so stuck in your path of how you've been sold, but you never think to question it and break it up a little bit, see that it don't really stand and till the ground. And but also though, I'd be trying to do that for you. That's what the purge does. That's what the Man Enough Challenge does. That's why Keyshawn started this whole stuff. When he first came here, he used to be doing a little calls, laying down on his stomach in a little dark corner of his room. Back then, this was the theology we were getting in there, but we had to tear things up. And you notice he went through when things got difficult in the challenges and you got up out of there, he stayed in there and he was getting broke up and things weren't making sense. And now it's coming and now seeds been able to fall and it's going deep. And he's asking some real questions now and being able, no, did he? And being able to handle some real answers. But that's the process, man. And so, yes, I do. But what did Jesus do? And why did the Pharisees not pick up what he was saying? They had this horrible theology and this path of doing things that it couldn't land. But who were the Pharisees in that time? They had the popular belief. The Pharisees, Sadducees, these religious leaders, they were thinking how you think. So how you think is the consensus for Christianity. And that's why so many people miss it. And it don't make sense. And it's closer to like a cult than a religion. But I got to be careful how I'm saying that because, like I said, it's not all bad. What a first meeting for Terrence. I'm sorry, bro. These don't usually go like this. This is guy. Yeah, my bad. We're yeah. All right, Keyshawn. I totally told him I wasn't even going to answer, but Keyshawn, go ahead, quick.
I was just about to say, since we tearing down this whole like theology of what modern Christianity is now, like does that then like take the focus off of how we get the gospel to people? Because I was having a conversation with somebody today, like somebody had died and he was like he could have done more in sharing the gospel, and I was like, man, like it's not you, like you're not doing the work, like you put it there and then you walk away and see if it'll grow. And that was kind of gonna be my next question, or what I asked you in the Vox, like how do we let people just be in process and not try to force feed or waterlog people with like Christian doctrine and just trying to get people to hurry up and be okay so I can be okay. And Ninja, that's the man. Ah, what? Okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
I love the realization. Yeah. Man, this is what I'm trying to get Jeremy to see, man. Like you are so much more patient and at peace when you accept this way of living. And you get that's why even when I'm saying things are bad, like I was like, I'm not trying to call things bad, even though it almost clearly sounds like I'm calling it bad. Because as you mature, you struggle to even call things bad. Because let me ask you this, and that's why we have sayings like the bigger sinner, the bigger the saint. What that means is I'd rather you be energetically moving. I got to be so careful with this, but like a weak man is a man that don't do nothing. Okay, like just sits on the fence, don't believe in nothing. Um, and that's almost one of the reasons like I really appreciate Kane, man. Like Kane will tell you, he's like, he ain't gonna sugarcoat it. He's like, I got energy to deploy. Sometimes it might go to God or it might be going here, but it's like, and that's why I think he grows so much though, because he's not cookie cutter or wishy-washy and in the middle. And that's more of what Christianity is raising, is these people that are just scared and don't do anything. And a point, something I'll point out in scripture is like Paul, who was first Saul. You could argue that's a pretty big sinner, a pretty bad person at one point, like legitimately persecuting and trying to stop the movement of Christ after the resurrection. That's a bad, really bad thing to do, you could say. But also, Paul ended up doing a lot of good too, because it was almost like because that energy was at least flowing, it was like a level -10, right? We're able to flip it for a +10. And so you're going to be so much, because you got to think this is how God has to look at us. Like, even the bad people, the evildoers, the people that are just so bad to you now, it's like, are they bad? Or are they ignorant? Or are they immature? And that's why also with Keyshawn, he's like, how do you go about this? It's like, that's why I don't just have these crazy theology breaking down conversations up front with folks. And there's a lot of y'all that were super happy with your little check-ins with some real cookie cutter spiritual stuff. And I wasn't like, you immature Christian, how dare you? I was like, nah, that's God too. Erica, just like when my daughter's drinking milk, I'm not like, you immature little brat. Where's the real food? It's like, nah, you drinking milk right now. We'll get to the bigger stuff lately. So it's like, yes, you're still experiencing God. It's just on such an immature level, and it's more of you and your thoughts, and you're kind of making yourself think is God. But hey, I like that. I'm glad you're in church. Because without that, how would you get here? And so it was, of course, that weird start. Or it's the shaky theology that got Keyshawn to the deeper theology. And so that's why you're also patient with that. You realize that in yourself, and you're not trying to necessarily just call everyone out. Because okay, you had this conversation with someone too early, they're like, what's the point? I give up. I don't get it. I'm overwhelmed. How Jerry, look at Jeremy. But Jeremy, you kind of I'm gonna show you some things. You know a lot more than you think you do when you get, but it's just like it's just reordering it. And so yeah. But here's another thing too that you got to get. I was about to get really deep with heaven and hell here, but like God doesn't love you any more or less once you understand this stuff. That almost brought up some more questions. I'm gonna let it go. So did I answer that question, Keyshawn?
And man, you answered it more and then some. You kind of
Um,
you broke me down. I don't
let's go.
care.
Let's go. I
Uh,
love it. I love it. 10 out of 10 week.
brother, it's a 25 out of 10 now that you just told me what you just told me. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Let's
go
go.
ahead.
I love
Just
it. All
we can
right.
end the
Bam.
call now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go quick. Everyone else, y'all know the deal. Highlight, low light, life satisfaction, and any questions that you have.
How dare he give us a whole hour of a sermon and say we got a speed run?
Right. And then I'm gonna get y'all,
What's
rush
this
y'all
shit,
out of
bro?
here. That's
He
crazy.
brought out all the theology, theosis, all this, man.
For that reason, Grape, I don't even think you can go. I'm so real. I'm not giving yo big mouth the mic. We'll be here another hour. Uh
Yeah, because I got a lot to say.
I
So yeah,
want I
you're right.
want you to talk. I'm mad Moyo wasn't here from the start. I want Moyo questions, but we gotta we'll do follow up. But dang. Last thing I'll say though, and Jeremy, you're missing so much of the beauty. Do you see that internal shift? Again, he was at a 10 out of 10, whatever, went to like a 25 out of 10. He didn't change much. He didn't fix anything. It was a quick internal shift. That's the kingdom of heaven, man. That stuff is internal. Sermon on the Mount. when Jesus is delivering that, you got to remember who he's delivering that to, man. He didn't deliver that to people that could just go get a side hustle on the side and then build their business up and then live this life of prosperity. These are broken, doomed people on the outside looking. And he was just showing them how this whole kingdom, this whole transformation, and a lot of their thinking of the time too was that they were cursed, betrayed by the gods, and the only time they could potentially have peace was when they died. But there was most likely going to be bad there too. And so here he is saying, nah, I come to give you life like right now, fam. And this is to the most broken people, like who you would think like are crackhead, not necessarily crackhead, but like homeless, destitute person. You know what I mean? But even like homeless in America is weird because we have come up stories like that. You didn't hear that back then. Do you know what I mean? Like you were born into a class and you died into it. You didn't get lucky. You didn't start a side hustle with the king or, and you get your family out the hood and you move them into the castle. Like, no, ninja. And a lot of these guys, they knew their whole life in captivity, under persecution, not being free. And so you guys got to think who he's speaking to and the transformation he's giving them and how revolutionary it is to them and how crazy it could be for you still 2,000 years later, because we've built even more hellish situations here in our new Babylon. All right. So David, if you're here, you can kind of ask your question that I'm probably not going to answer. Wait, does anyone have any questions before David? Because he's probably going to ask something deep. Okay, good.
Well, no, well, if everybody wants, if they want to leave, they can. That's what I meant. Like,
right,
if you need to leave too now, though, I
okay,
can just box you.
That I would, I might need to, I might want to answer this though. So hold on, though. I like these questions, man. Give me a chance.
Yeah, but
I'm
pick
a
a side.
crackhead.
Are you open to be here at like 15 to 30 more minutes or no?
Nah, I don't know. That's what I'm telling you. You can't box me in. I won't know till I hear it.
Oh, wow.
Because here's what you don't realize with some of these things that you're asking. You think it's going to be a 15, 20-minute question. But sometimes with some of these questions, like you said, I gotta unpack to even unpack. And so it might not be 15, 20. But yes, let's see. I'm sure for someone, Jonathan Pajot can drop it in 15 minutes, I might need 30 though. So, but let's hear it.
Oh, I would prefer the 30, but okay, anyway. So I was just thinking about how we were talking about just all the preconceived notions we have and ideas we have about theology. Um, I guess it's kind of annoying as we learn more because it's like you kind of have to break down the stuff. And thinking about the character of God and like I guess judgment and the Old Testament. Or people like to say Old Testament God versus New Testament God, even though that's not really accurate. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, the judgment aspect of God and how people like to think of hell as like, okay, that's God's judgment against people, and like if they don't choose God, they're automatically going to hell and like experiencing eternal punishment. Or even an example of the Old Testament could be like there was I don't know what book specifically, but there's this guy I like to follow. His name is Alex O'Connor, and he's like, did God command the Israelites to commit genocide or something like that?
Oh, a
Do
cosmic
you think
skeptic.
that do you think that's accurate too, or do you think some people like to say, oh, it wasn't literal, this or that, or some people also say like, no, he's God, he has the right to take away life. Like, how do you take into the concept of like the judgment of God, or if that even exists?
Let me see how much I know if I have to unpack. Well, I do believe in the judgment of God. Yeah, I do think that is real. Do you understand why some of like the more like so like we have these things on like the afterlife that are like on maybe like the fringe of reality, right? Like these things that we are on the edge even of our understanding. You do see why I try to like unpack them in a way that still makes sense to us, because we can just get lost doing all of
Yes.
the. So I do think, and that's how fractals work though. Like I said, we can see these patterns that make sense in our lives, but they also are playing out in outer space to where we don't even comprehend, and then it's playing out on like a cellular level that we don't even consciously even understand. And so that's why I like to look through the threads and the hints of things, because I do believe there's some sort of like cosmic you might even use the word like giant judgment or something that I won't fully have the words for, but then I always try to bring it back into our realm and our fractalness where I kind of can talk about it a little bit more. And so
Okay.
if you would allow that question to go back to there, oh yeah, of course. I think judgment is real. I think it's necessary. I think you need judgment to have purpose. And it sounds like I'm breaking this down to so like it's maybe rudimentary or like basic level, but this is how it works and it plays out. So like you have no, even when I'm saying like a chair is something, right? When I'm pointing to a chair, I'm pointing to what it's not. And I'm saying that this isn't that. It's a judgment, right? Like it's a stance. And you're like, oh, but there's no punishment in that and whatnot. But you could get into that there is, but it's just like, so of course, I think justice is a real thing in life. It's not a myth. It's not some sort of like it's a requirement for the cosmos. You know what I mean? For us to have stability and purpose. And I think it has so many healing attributes to us in this game underneath the sun. And so yeah, I don't have any issue with judgment. And I think that's closer to how you should understand it. And I think because here's the thing too. If you make sense, you won't be able to, but let's say you make sense of a cosmic judgment and an afterlife, but you don't even understand what that means for you while you're living. What's the point? And like, for example, I want Jeremy to ask, why do I think that this life is just so arbitrary and random? But when I die, that's the place that really is like serious and what matters for God. Why did he create this little trial period? Why do I just get to like raise my hand once and be good? And so I just want to make sure we're not so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good. Does that make sense? Like we're not so far
Yeah.
in the clouds that nothing is practical. And
Mhm.
so do you still have questions on judgment in like a practical sense? Like, do you have an issue with it? Do you think if I could bring the question more there?
Thank you. Yeah. So like, yeah, I understand because we have jail systems and we have like, that works. Like we have the police. If people get arrested, it's part of life.
Yeah.
But are you saying that do you think like the person genocide, even though that's kind of a may not be accurate to describe it, but do you think like God judging or killing people in the Old Testament, like do you think that that was a good thing, or do you think it actually happened? Yeah.
One, I do think it happened.
Or
I
at
do
least
think it happened.
commanding people to kill other people in the name of judgment.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure he commands the Israelites to kill the Amalekites or something like that.
And so there's a few things that are happening though in a judgment. Do you think someone okay, do you think any of those people that died, so there was in judgment on them, because judgment happens at levels, right? And
Yes.
so do you think that any of those people that could have been ordered to die, and I'm trying to bring it out even through history, like any kind of way, but even I get why that is a contention point. Do you think any of those people and whatever you would call as like an afterlife heaven experience, do you think any of them could be in heaven?
Yeah, definitely.
But
Especially
okay,
with
so they could face a judgment where their life ends, but maybe
right.
they have different eternal consequences. Again, I'm not trying to bring it too far into the afterlife because it's not about that. But with how you answer that question, I would say yes. I do think that's okay, and I don't think that is above or beyond, and God is out of line for that. But I also, like I said, there's levels to the judgment. Like I judge my kids all the time, and they get in trouble and they get punished severely. I don't stop loving them. And we're talking about what is death? Death is like we're like I'm trying to bring out to the cosmos too. Like you don't think you stop to exist, or those people cease to exist when they die, right?
I don't as a theist, but a materialist would say like they're done. They're cooked.
Right. Oh yeah. So we can't even argue from that frame of reference. We're talking just materialism. How do we have purpose? And that's why I bring it all the way up to
Yeah.
the original, and that's why I'm even going to the details. It seems like I'm nitpicking when I'm talking about like judgment. It's like if you even notice without the Bible, we can't have
Where's the
this.
morality?
We can't have this thing that we call life without heaven being there and setting the waypoint and setting the not the waypoint but like the due north for things so that we can have things like purpose, like descriptions, because every single thing when we're taught like a chair, all these things are purpose driven. They have a purpose. They're not random existence. uh so it gets really deep, but yes. So yeah, I don't struggle as much with some of the Old Testament violence in there when we think on that level. But yeah, how does that answer suffice?
It does,
That
yeah.
didn't take
I
as
don't. I
long. That
wouldn't.
didn't take as
I
long as I
wouldn't.
thought.
I wouldn't say I struggle with it, but I do think because one because I trust like there's a reason for everything that he does, um, and a lot of times I'm just not gonna understand it. But I also can understand like how people say like, or would argue that God is immoral, or his existence is unlikely because that happened, or his figure commanded that in the Old Testament.
Man, this and I wasn't trying to get too deep, and I'll try to be quick here with that though. But everything that happens, God knows takes place, right? Everything
He
happens under his
knows.
sovereignty,
He knows.
right?
Yes.
And
No.
allows.
Allows, yeah.
And
Not
allows.
necessarily called causes, but allows, yeah.
And I love that we make that distinction because because it's not like God's not out there trying to get you, but he's also not trying to stop the people that are getting you. Like, we have to be very clear on that. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like when we're talking about what God sent people to do or allowed to do, we could, it may not be as easy, but we can make that same connection. Like, why did he allow this famine to hit and these Africans to die or allow this hurricane to hurt these people? I think we almost have to answer it just it's very much the same. Because it's not like you could say one thing is like God allowed these people to kill or even directed them. And I don't want to say God directed the tornado. God wasn't surprised by the tornado that came through and tore up the family's house and killed the 8 people.
Not surprised. Okay. But then you did mention directing though. That is
Well,
kind
that's
of tough
well
to
that
wrestle with.
that's
Because
kind of
you
the
did.
words. The words get a little crazy there because it's like if God knew, fam, if you knew something was about to come and kill this entire family, and God is never sitting back and he's like minding his business, he's chilling in heaven, and he's like doo 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 doo. He gets an alert like, oh no, he's not Batman. He's not like, oh no, a tornado. I think I'm gonna let this one go just because some people gotta experience, or I don't know, whatever we might think. Like, God is everything is now. It's just hard to explain. It's again, it's hard to put these
Yeah.
words around it, but it's like, so as God isn't experiencing things in time and waiting for us to like, he created and he's experiencing, he's living. And that tornado is happening. The Israelites are in the wilderness, and you are not just the badness in you, you're all the good too. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it's like all of our concepts fall apart. It's like, is Paul bad or is he good? Because I go to a certain point, Paul was bad. And what if he died then? Do you know what I mean? But also, God wouldn't be surprised by the death. So it's just, it really is breaking down even sometimes how we view God. And that helps us fill in some of the blanks, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I'm saying like what about like the fact that it's commanded, like he's commanding go bop these ninjas. Like is
I guess
not
what
that's
I'm,
not
well,
even allowed.
I guess what I'm kind of trying to say is what's the difference? The fact that the ninjas got bopped, period.
Hmm. Wait, are you saying like it was gonna happen either way?
No, I'm asking you. So you're like, is God, so like if God orders, right, for you to destroy the Moabites,
Hmm.
but then let's say you don't, God doesn't order you to destroy the Moabites and the Moabites get destroyed by a nation. Is God less accountable? Is that what you're saying? In the ones where he didn't send them?
It would seem so.
But why is that?
Because it seems like, like, okay, I'll just use the two people here. Like Khalil, let's say, okay, we look back on a movie. One of the movie scenes, Khalil comes and just takes all my stuff from my house. That's one. The other scene or reality is like Sean coming in. It's like Dion, aka God, told me to come in here and take your stuff. One of the situations I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, Khalil just came in because he wanted to take my stuff.
But you
Another,
didn't
I'm like,
leave. You didn't put God in the first situation. But if we're telling it accurately, God is just as much in the first situation.
I was just gonna go there because my reason I think I agree with Dion is if you knew something, what's the difference in me telling you to do something? So if you knew I was in the whole situation with God, if he told me to come rob your house, cool. But if he didn't tell you that I was going to come rob, what's the difference? He knew in either situation that the robbing was gonna happen, and he didn't stop it in either way, knowing it was gonna happen and didn't telling you, and it didn't stop it, or telling the person to go do it. Either way, the robbery was happening there.
I guess I'm just struggling to see like how kind of the question you brought earlier, like, is God less accountable in one situation than the other? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
What
that's kind of where we're at. It's like when you're really talking about God, like, and I'm trying to bring it back to because hopefully I don't want you to see that I'm defending. I'm not even trying. Oh, wait, I got to back up because I'm not even trying to say that I'm trying to demonize judgment or people dying. I'm more so trying to bring it back to what is the story of the Bible? What is the point? And what is the point of these authors trying to make? And what should we be taking from that story versus getting caught up? And even maybe sometimes, kind of how like sometimes we'll try to make metaphysical arguments or not even, or like even like scientific and, you know, I've seen a lot of different weird arguments out of Genesis when it's like, hold up, that's not what the authors were trying to get us to get. And so, but it's tough though, because I get the struggle because I genuinely do believe some of these events happened. But even as you're reading the story and reflecting on it, I want you closer towards why is this written? What am I getting out of? Instead of trying to almost like defend or convict the morality of God. But I'm not saying that you can't do that. I'm just saying we use the whole scripture for that as well, too. And we don't just isolate it and be like, see, because and it's weird too. You just see how fragile we view God too. Is it like he can just be destroyed by these like little slip ups, maybe you would say in scripture.
No.
Not even you though. I'm just saying if we get caught up in this logic, that's all we're
Yeah.
left with. We're not left with anything practical, if that makes sense. And so that's why I was trying to bring it back there without saying that I don't think it happened because I do. But it's almost like where the authors, let's say whether Adam and Eve really existed and whether it really happened like that. I almost need you to get out of that because
No,
why did the
I rock with
authors
that.
write
I
that?
rock
Okay,
with that. I
okay.
rock with the meaning. Like that stuff matters to me more. And like, is God less accountable or not in that situation for those?
Yes.
Like,
And
what
I'm
do
on the
you
other end.
wait? What do you mean by yes? Hold on, wait.
Go ahead.
Dion, what did you said? Did you
Yes,
answer?
you're tracking that.
No, I'm saying is God less accountable or not versus
No,
commanding?
that's the question to you. How is he less accountable?
I would say because
Your God, you send Keyshawn to go kill your sister. That's kind of fluff up. Your God, you know Keyshawn is going to go kill your sister. You don't stop her from killing your sister. Why wouldn't you?
wait, what? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Because if it's wrong for your sister to die, why wouldn't you stop Keyshawn from killing your sister?
Because Keyshawn has free will to do what he wants.
Exactly. And if you know, but I mean, everyone has free will, though. Do you know what I mean? Even the people that you command. There's a lot of commandments in the Bible, and we know they were, and we know they did a really good job not following them. And so
Yeah.
when we're thinking about this story, you know what I mean? So yes, but yeah, even without the commandments, though, if you don't think that's because you're almost like kind of say like, man, guys, you're kind of fluffed up for doing that, for commanding that. Why I'm saying is, why don't you feel that same thing of like, dang, guys, you're kind of fluffed up for allowing this to happen? It's almost as if you did send it or you did cause it.
No, yeah, I wouldn't say he's fluffed up for allowing it because people have their free will. Like that stuff happens. He's not controlling them. But like I wouldn't say that, okay, then I can command Keyshawn since I already know he's gonna do it anyway. Or I wouldn't say I should command Keyshawn.
But I
Do you
just
what do you think about
when,
that?
when you go into your free will thing, that's I think even then still like that's where the question comes in. He can tell me to go do it. I don't have to go do it. The commandment part of it.
But why
Like
command
there,
in the first place then if
So
you
you,
already know it's gonna happen? Or especially like that sort of
oh
thing.
my, okay,
Why
okay. So
command that sort
see,
of
this
thing?
this is what I and this is what
Even
I almost want to use to almost help you reanalyze the situation. Because also look at what you're asking. Why anything? Why do you pray to God if he already knows the future?
it's more so an internal thing for me. Connection to get to him.
Do you think there's anything that
Doesn't
God could do that is immoral or evil
no,
or
no,
wrong?
no. But that's
And
from
so,
my Christian worldview.
no, I think that's a pretty strong worldview. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do too. Yeah, I'm with that.
Like I'm kind of biased, is what I'm saying.
All right, yeah. But I'm not. I'm trying to give it to you without giving it to you though, because it's almost like when God commands it, that almost makes it impossible to debate it as being bad, or even I almost feel like it might be almost easier to convict God when he's not speaking and he's not commanding because of what him speaking and commanding means. But that's an unbiased answer, David. My bad, I'm getting distracted.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And so that's why when I said yes, I thought you were more so questioning it like I was right there. Like I thought you were kind of tracking and being like, huh, maybe I do need to look at this from a different angle because you got to think when God speaking, God laying out the order, the cosmos. That's how we get like when God gets to commanding, it's almost like for helping yourself reason through certain things like that. And especially when you have these choke points on scripture that are based off of random, and I don't want to say they're random, but just like almost just like theology we've picked up just off of like this one verse, like maybe this off of hell or this off of whatever. Okay, maybe I'll say it like this. Are you confident that when the Old Testament authors were writing these promised land stories, do you think they were trying to offer up an argument around God's morality?
when they were what?
When you're reading these Old Testament stories, do you think the goal of this Old Testament author was to offer some sort of like thesis or debate or challenge against God's morality, like to try to debate it when they're mentioning the killing of,
No,
nations or people?
no, they're just saying what happened.
Yes, yes, yes. And so what I'm trying to say is I'd rather you bring the story and your attention to the meaning that you think those authors were after versus letting details of it hang you up.
I should have tailed it. I'm not gonna look right now.
I see what you mean.
And what part
Just
don't you see? Why are you talking slow? Because it's the exact same thing we say in Genesis when I'm like, that's not what they're getting after. And you're like, but I think I can make an argument for the creation of time and space and this and that for me.
yeah, I get it in Genesis because it's like, yeah, it's not like it's about the story. It's story driven. Um, but there's nothing in Genesis that raises an alarm like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm also coming from the notion, the preconceived or presupposition that um a commandment for ordering a nation to be killed just it seems wrong. So is there
You don't think putting them in a garden, knowing like God wasn't surprised that they were going to eat from the tree. Like that, right?
Mhm.
There was nothing in Genesis that you don't feel like they were set up to fail at all in a fall. And there's this crazy punishment that comes down from humanity because And the fact that you're even living in a punishment that you didn't even participate in because Eve so far back ate the fruit.
That's I don't even know all that even happened like that. Again, it's more so the story behind it and what it's trying to tell me. So that doesn't it doesn't. Wait, are
But
you
do you
trying to say
see it's
that?
the same thing? Do you see
Oh.
how you're not? But do you see how you're not like calling God a bad guy for how he set them up there because you understand that's not what we're talking.
Well,
That's not what we're after for the story.
for me though, I wouldn't. Sure, you can say he set them up. Yeah, man. I don't even know if that literally happened, or is it just more so like storytelling? Same thing, but same thing for like the same thing for the commandment. I don't even know if that literally happened, or they thought they heard from God as the commandment. I don't even know if all that literally happened. Does that make? But again, it's all in a story. What do you think about that?
I think that's careful. I think that's tough. I personally don't care, but I just think it's like, what are you using? I'm trying not to unpack, and I'm trying to be as direct as possible.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe I'll put it like this. I'm worried at how this is how it has to be at first. It has to be scattered and broken up, but I don't see. It's almost like I want to know the question behind the question a little bit because it doesn't seem as consistent. Like so I guess would you say at the end of the day, are you saying you can't stomach or fathom a world where God has control over people's lives to the point where he decides how and when people die?
I think I could. It just still seems hard to think about. And also like, yeah, think about. Yeah, it seems hard to think about, and like, it just it's not. It wouldn't be how I would think of God per se.
That's usually a good thing in the Bible at first. I mean, obviously that can be bad because we don't want to have some horrible, unloving God that is a picture. But I almost like I don't think you have to suspend any of your love and your understanding of the graciousness of God and all the good things to understand that story. And even if it actually did happen and it wasn't just a a story, why do you still struggle with like the morality of God? I guess that's a better place to park it.
Because it seems dark to think that God
I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
commanded women and children and babies and other people to be killed off. It seems dark. Do
That's
you
kind of what
does that make
I
sense?
do get what you're saying, but I'm just trying to bring your attention to the cosmic judgment. And there's a lot of things that you could make that same distinction on. And just because I'm trying to bring you to the level that God is operating on, because like, yes, on a human level, you're like, yeah, but he didn't go tell a person to do it. We're talking about God who set every single thing in motion, the children starving, the natural disasters. And I'm trying to get you to think on it a more consistent thread than just zooming in and being like, I just don't get why he would command these people to kill. Um, and are there wars in the Bible that you don't have an issue with? Like, are you cool with them fighting the Philistines because they were like attacking and there wasn't like no women and children?
Uh, I'm not. I'm not full on like I don't have that stuff memorized yet, so I couldn't give you a real answer.
Okay. But even just hearing it, like, does that disturb you? Like, think hearing like Israel at war, fighting Philistines, people that are fighting back, or just violence?
I do remember reading Samuel and seeing how like God commanded David to I think kill someone. And it was like I was like, why though? Like, what's the point? I mean, it could be out of like self-defense, or maybe there's I've heard, oh, like maybe there's a nation that's sacrificing babies. Like that needs to stop. And there was judgment that happened there. So I can understand that.
But
But like
even before that, God allowed them to sacrifice babies. You don't think that's fluffed
yeah,
up?
but then I'm saying allowing and commanding, like that's just those are two different things for me. And that's why I'm struggling with the command part, you know?
Yeah, I think we might have to leave that there. Great. I'll let Grape and Katie go. And I'll follow with some stuff because I'm about to unpack a whole nother question. Grape, you want to go first?
All right.
On mine.
Yeah, I can. So
Let me know, is it a question or a thought? If it's a thought, I'm gonna step away, use the bathroom, and I'll be
it's
listening.
a thought. It's just a thought.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I love that you're processing through it. I think what I'm hearing and what is being assumed from that perspective is we're questioning morality and we're questioning the moral lawgiver. I think that's where a lot of this, to me, rests on. Because to assume, because there's an assumption in the difference between allowing and commanding. There's an assumption that there's an imbalance, and then there's an assumption that, okay, well, whoever God is and whatever He commanded, well, this can't be right. So it's like, well, on whose standards are we saying that can't be right? Because on the same level of you questioning that, there are people who would legitimately tell you that, and I'm sure you've heard these arguments before, so I'm not saying you're taking them. It's just more of like what would other people assume and how maybe you could navigate it is maybe how I'm receiving this conversation, but you can correct me. Maybe it's a legitimate tension for you. Like, I think there are legitimate people who would look at Nazi Germany and what they did to the Jews as something that's good. Well, by whose standards are we defining that to be good? Who gets to say that is the right behavior that should have been enacted on that day and throughout the course of history with what happened there? Where do we get that from? Some people would say community. Oh, well, we already know. Well, I don't think that that's actually completely accurate, at least, and not just from because I know that this is easily something you could uphold in a Christian worldview. But remember, there's three monotheistic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? All three assume that there's an ultimate creator. And by way of assuming that there's an ultimate creator who started everything there is in its existence, he also, by way of having whatever he had in mind to design all of this, a playbook, a game manual, and rules in how to actually operate in this life. So I feel like what you're saying, it seems like that's the root of it, but I don't want to necessarily assume it because that could be something different. So would you say that is something that maybe is close to what you're wrestling with? Because I think there's something to unpack there.
Yeah. What's that I'm close to wrestling with again?
So are you questioning? It sounds like you're questioning morality. Would you say that that's accurate in what you're going after? Because again, we're talking about definitions, allowing versus command. I'm struggling with God commanding a group of people to go and rid of an entire nation. And that is a struggle for me because there are people who, in your mind, you're saying didn't deserve that. Would I be correct in saying that?
I wouldn't say they didn't deserve it. It just seems hard to wrestle with. Because for all I know, they could deserve. I don't know all the context behind it.
Right.
But it is weird because I'm okay with like allowing, because allowing, like, he does allow, like, that happens. But the part about like him almost like butting in and commanding seems weird to me. That's all.
Yeah. So I think how I would just address it is, all right, well, one, if we believe that Genesis 1:1 is accurate, then the rest of the text is accurate too. Because you can't have what follows Genesis 1:1 without actually taking into account in the beginning, God created. In order to create something, you're also setting the standard for what you're creating. You're giving the law, you're giving the morality, you're doing all that. So when it comes back to the Old Testament, so many different things, because maybe this is a question that you might have too, like, well, how do you feel about how do you feel about Lot throwing out his daughters to the men who surrounded his door that were asking for him sexually? Do we raise questions about God's morality then because of that's what we see in the text? And I'm gonna throw out a couple more examples because I think they're very, very relative to what you're questioning regarding what he may have commanded. Would we then say the same thing when the Israelite at the end of Judges, who goes and grabs a concubine, gives her to the same situation that Lot encounters, and then she is back at the doorstep dead due to the plundering that these people did to her? So he chooses to cut up her body and send them to the 12 tribes of Israel as a message to deal with this. Do we raise that same questioning? Um, do we raise that same questioning at all throughout the Old Testament when God allows Israel and commands Israel to take out other nations that were attacking them? Do we like I just don't know if we carry that same logic in those other spaces that I think are very, very closely related to what we're assuming and are questioning from that specific situation regarding the Amalekites and other things. So I would
Yeah.
say, yeah, give an answer. If you have an answer, give that. I'd love to.
You had said like commanding them to attack the other nations that were attacking them, and for all I know, in this situation, the original situation we started talking about, the other nation could have been attacking them. I don't know. I didn't fully read into the story yet, so like that would make sense. But from what I've heard, like it doesn't seem like that other nation was attacking them. It seems like it was just a straight out commandment, like go get them. Like does that make
Yeah,
sense?
and I'm assuming this is towards the Amalekites, right? Is that what this is
I'm
towards?
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's Israelites. God commanding Israelites to wipe out the Amalekites. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So one, context is important. That's exactly why we run to context, because context would inform you from both original language actually would go a lot deeper, but in context, the Amalekites have always been a thorn in Israel's side. The Amalekites have always been on the offense and attacking Israel throughout their tenure in journeying to the promised land and being in the promised land and driving out people that God is telling them to do. Like the Amalekites have never been a nation of people that were for God's people at all. They were always on the offense to them. So I think that is a perspective to take that I think is worth just in consideration and challenging. I also
Hmm.
think too, again, we talked about this earlier when there's different languages that are presented throughout the text. There's literary, there's poetic, there is hyperbolic, all these
Correct.
different
Yeah.
types of languages. So what I would encourage you to do is when you encounter that text, it's not going to be too far later that you're going to see Amalekites come back up again. So
Yes.
does that, wait a minute. So God just instructed these people to wipe out, quote unquote, off the face of the earth, the Amalekites. But the Amalekites show back up later in the same Old Testament that we first read that from. So does that make God a liar? What are we saying? On top of him being immoral? So we're then that's where we're like, again, we got to go get the context because we're just putting random puzzle pieces together on a picture that isn't even existing in the text. Because I would
Gotcha.
argue from contextual perspectives that it doesn't make God a liar because when he says wipe them off, he's not saying that he's going to literally take every Amalekite off the face of the earth in that moment. What I would argue is that that was him just emphasizing the need for Israel to go handle business in a 2025 standard moment, right? And then
Hmm.
you start raising the question again, and you say, well, okay, well, God told them to do it anyway. I remember having an argument, bro. I kid you not. And I did this stuff for study with somebody. Like, I was in Instagram DMs. It's crazy. This guy caught a video that I had. He made a comment. I just wanted to engage in conversation, didn't expect it a debate. But long story short, he raised that question to me. He was like, wait, so if God told you to step into a wilderness or to go to a nation and take them all out, you telling me you do it? And it's kind of a trapping question, one that I kind of wasn't prepared for. How I answered it, I probably would answer it a lot differently, but I did answer it. I would say, well, yeah, but in my mind, that's because I truly believe that there's nothing God can do that's wrong. Like God Himself is the ultimate creator who is described from a biblical perspective to be a holy being, perfect. Sin can't even exist. Dude don't even he can't even move that way. So if he's going to give an instruction, A, in my mind at the time, I'm like, well, there's got to be something deeper that I just don't see. But then B, I would also say I would lean on the perspective of, well, if God's the giver of life, he can also take life. Like what we're assuming, I feel like what we could possibly be assuming, and it's a scary place to step into if we go deeper into that, is we're assuming that God has to come to us in order to make a decision on what he's going to do on something that's greater than us. Like, hey, I need you to go handle that. Well, God, what's up? What are you talking about? I need clearance before you start
Yeah.
doing all this kind of stuff. I think that could go into that direction. And I'm not saying it's not a legitimate question. I just think maybe the heart of it is the morality of it. And I think if God's the moral lawgiver, then he sets the standard for that. And it's not to say that it had to come to Israel going to wipe out that nation, quote unquote. But, let's not act like Amalekites didn't have years and years and years and years to repent and to not continue in that direction. So I think the tension is the morality, God's judgment and love. What does that look like? I think it sounds like that's what the heart of it is. And again, I could be wrong.
Yeah, you kind of answered what I was just looking for. I was mostly looking for like your guys' perspectives, and I've heard those before, like those reasons. So it sounds like one, you think it could be hyperbolic. You think it could be uh
Hyperbolic how?
Now,
well,
no,
the language that was used, like drive out the Amalekites. Like you think that could have been hyperbolic. You also
yeah.
think that
So
God.
Oh,
You
yeah,
also
like the
think that God
destructive
can.
language, yeah,
You also
but
think that God can take life because he also gives it. It sounds like that's what you're saying. Like the two main things. And I understand those. Um, I guess I'm just gonna to wrap it all up. Do you
okay.
go ahead?
Okay, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Do you understand? Do you get the part I was wrestling with for the most part, Dion?
Kinda, but I don't want you to get that almost. But yes, I do. Like
Wait, what?
I do get how you landed there, but kind of what I was hearing too. Oh, you have a follow up to
I
that?
have a
That wasn't
post
the.
question after because I think this is gonna help wrap it up.
Oh, do that then. Yep.
So do you understand where like the wrestling is, right?
Yep.
Like how I'm wrestling with the part about allowing versus commanding. Do
Yep.
you understand that?
Yep.
Okay. So if you were me, what's the reason you tell yourself that helps you no longer wrestle with that anymore?
Well, I'd still tell you what I'm telling you now. I don't know if it would be any different, but maybe how I'd phrase it now is I noticed you were even talking to Grape. You were like, I don't really know the story, man. I'm kind of shaky on it. I just kind of know this is something that God did. That's kind of the issue, is that the story doesn't exist for you to make some moral argument against the moral lawgiver and you to judge him. They wrote that, and no one at the time, especially who they were writing to, is gonna have the struggle that you do, because we take a Near East perspective on God. They not not only do they know God exists, that a God exists, they believe it's the gods are animating everything that has to do with life, and they have the ability and the right to take away life, give life. It's just a whole less entitled view towards it. And so I'm saying it's like let's say I made a Madden strategy guide to help you get better at Madden. I have a reason and a purpose for you to read that. And it's like you kind of hearing about it and being like, yeah, but Dion's a bad person, bro. Or like, I don't know what's up with Dion. And I'm like, yeah, I get how you got there, but that's not the point and why you should be going to the text to make these counter weird, crazy arguments. But I definitely, like I said, I can get how you get there, because I don't fall on the more, again, I don't even like labeling this much, but there is a more Christian, maybe mystic approach where they don't believe any of that stuff happened. I'm okay with it happening still. Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to say against Christian mysticism. There's a lot of things I look at like a Christian mystic, because at the same time, like a Christian mystic might tell you, is that story is way more about God telling you a picture of course, he's also preserving Israel and the line of Jesus, and so that he can do something that is happening on a cosmic level.
Oh,
right? But also it's deeper than that too. And he's showing this weird working of God's justice and authority, and even the mystery of it, of how God can take away life just as in the same way that he gives it, and can give judgment in ways that we may not always understand. But again, you see that fractal other places, not just at that place in the story. And that's what the theme I kind of want you to see, and that translate into your life when, in a lot of ways too. There's so much you should take from that when you see that, like, man, there's decisions you make that go down and affect your kids in ways that they can't even control, that they're just handed things. There's things that your dad did that you're still fighting with to this day and you wish he didn't. That's stuff that you also pull down from that story, that they're trying to show that real, tangible, painful, even down to death type consequences are tied into the family and our actions and how we move. And it can get deep and it can get dark, but none of it can overthrow God. God's going to find a way. God will make a way. And sometimes it looks a little imperfect and there's imperfect people involved, but the purity of Israel was maintained through that. And we get the bloodline of Jesus. And of course, we get Christ and everything that happens on the cross. And so that's why I'm okay with it being a real thing, just like Jesus was a real thing that's hard to wrestle with and make sense of. But that's not why the story existed in the Bible form for us to read. So it's weird. It's almost like layers to it. So of course I want you to wrestle with the thing that you're wrestling with in a way, like in trying to make sense of the story, but not trying to make sideways moral arguments about God because of how it went down. The moral arguments are made throughout scripture in so many different ways, and you take more of the the, the point from that story, but without having to run away from it completely too, and being like, but no one ain't really died. No, I think Jesus really died. I think they really died. I think real people really killed him. I don't think that's hyperbolic at all. There is hyperbole in that. Like, I think I was on my son keep calling me, but I think Great was saying that, like, there was no like total destruction, most likely, because we do
Yeah,
see
because they come
follow-ups.
up in the future chapters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
that's what I was saying. I just
Yeah,
as much as I believe that actually happened, I actually believe Lot threw his daughters out there to get plundered. Just like I actually believe
yeah,
that there was a judge who swore and made an oath that if God delivered, he would do what the first person to show up on his front door, he would sacrifice, and it was his daughter. And
yeah,
she actually was sacrificed. I believe that in scripture, the judge at the end of the book of Judges had a concubine. He threw her out. She gets raped to death. Is
yeah.
back at his front door, and he literally chops her body up into 12 different pieces and ships them out across the tribes of Israel. I I like that's the tension that I think is alive and well in the text, and you cannot dance around that. That is there, but it's
But
the
your life is like that too. Your life is kind of messy and weird and don't always
tension,
make
bro.
sense and have the
Yeah,
mystery. And that's kind of
yeah,
what, yeah, I think is there. So,
yeah. So tension is all a
but
part of just experiencing God, bro. But
but
it
when I
we
say
have to
last thing
learn.
I'll
Oh,
say before I'll give it to Great though, I don't think it's hyperbolic in the sense of like how Jonah is. Like if you look at Jonah, Jonah's very extreme. I don't think that's meant to be taken serious. So if someone was like, was Jonah in a well for 3 days? That I kind of don't know. But as you especially read that and you hear like a Jew break that down, man, like it's very extreme language. It's how we would say like Saturday Night Live. Like when we see there's certain movies that you watch, you're like, yo, did that really happen? You know what I mean? You don't watch Super Bad and are like, I wonder if that really happened.
Yeah.
And Jonah is very much like a Super Bad. It's very extreme and wild. And so it makes sense that he got eaten and things of that nature. But yeah, the stuff you're talking about is everything Grape was saying.
So you think it actually happened and it doesn't, or you take the view that it actually happened and it doesn't bother you because you're of the view that, one, for very, very good reason, it preserved the line of Jesus, helped preserve the line of Jesus. Two, the Amalekites kind of had it coming to them because they also were a nation that was attacking Israel. Is that accurate? Maybe.
Yes and no, but okay, I want to pause you. This is why I was saying, like, even with like if you get hung up on the commanding, not commanding thing, I don't think from that angle that just makes God okay. Because you didn't do that, now I know you're a moral God. There's so many other things in scripture that you got to walk through and be like, well, hold up. If he's this crazy good, awesome moral guy, that's why I was like, why are we making the moral argument here? And why is a mortal okay, so I don't think this is bad to logically see through things. And that's why I asked you to see patterns, because even things that you kind of can't understand, you can kind of bring it like maybe like space you can't understand, but I can bring it to a pattern, like a leaf, something that you can see and touch, you can understand. That's why I do that often. So I don't think there's no understandings that you should have on things and you have to blindly trust stuff.
Yes.
But we can logically work our way, kind of how we have the science to tell us that there's things that we can't see, like light rays that we can't pick up, and there's radio waves, sound waves, all these things that we know are around us, but we can't fully comprehend. That's how I feel like some of the logic with God will work. And so you do have to be careful when it's very easily throughout scripture, reading a lot of things outside of very few stories where you have choke points about God's morality, like because God is morality. And so we do have to be careful sometimes when us as the created moral being is trying to question morality itself. And we wonder why certain acts, and again, we see little fractals of it in Solomon's story. You know, the story of him deciding, talking about cutting the baby in half,
Yes.
right? That's a very violent, weird, strange story. It's wise. If Solomon is wise, how is God not wise? He's doing things that you don't fully understand. Why does Jesus die as a king? Why? It's so much. And so,
Fam.
yeah, that's why I want you to more consistently kind of zoom out and be like, yes, it's okay to struggle with that, but I don't want you. I almost, what I hear is almost like you're trying to get to a point where you can confidently persuade someone and argue the morality of God through this situation. And when you're doing that, I'm like, you missed the point on why that is even pinned in there. And you can go out and do as many debates as you want on that. That isn't going to be what brings people to God. And so
And
we got
I
to be
tried it.
careful.
It's
That's
the
how we miss it.
worst.
Yes. So
It's
that's
the
why I struggle, because y'all say so many good things. And I'm like, I know the cookie cutter answer from my days of studying. And like, but like, we got to get out of trying to defeat and even try to fully grasp these things. I'm like, that's not it. And I keep trying to bring you back to living and reading just read the thing. Don't even make it. You ain't even fully read it. Go read it and see all the intricacies and the deep things that you get about the fabric of reality and how it exists and what God is doing through it. That's why it exists. And that's what the authors are taking from it, more so than none of them in their reading it are like, dang God, it was kind of fluffed up thing to do.
It's
Okay.
I'll say this last thought too. It's kind of like when you read through the context of the scripture, at least that's how I've seen it up to this point, graciously. It's like there's a there's so much in there that you need to actually, study through to apply in your life. And God's kind of just like, oh yeah, in the process of you getting this application through this book here, here's a little more taste of humanity and the experience of people just being people and sin doing sin things. So, like, I didn't when I was reading through the book of Judges, I just finished Judges not too long ago. Like, I wasn't locked in on Judges in the aspect of paying attention to the immoral behaviors of the judges. Like, when people look at the life of Samson and they make it all about lust, they've missed it. In my opinion, they have legitimately missed it. When they make David just to as the king who who took Bathsheba and had an illegitimate child and things like that, they missed it. In my humble opinion, straight up missed it. I think they miss it when you look at Lot and again, going back to the daughters being thrown out, you just miss it. I think in the context of it, yes, that's present. We don't ignore it. It's there. And I just don't think, as the authors were writing that, they were making that to be a huge glaring point of the entirety of the text. And I don't think that's what God is ultimately doing either. Again, we hold the tension. We acknowledge it's there. However, in the crash course of the entirety of the context, what is this really saying? And I think that's where deeper study comes into play. And we just get so many more abundance of perspectives that help us understand it better. Like, all right, last example, John chapter 6. It's actually becoming one of my favorite chapters. Jesus says, "You cannot be my disciple unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood." Ten brothers was like, "Bro, what? What are you talking about?" The context of all of John isn't to focus on Jesus telling the people that they had to eat his flesh and drink his blood to be his disciple. And then they learn as they dwelled with him that he wasn't even talking about cannibalism. I think that's oftentimes where we're at. We read the text, we think God is saying one thing, but the longer we stay with him and the longer we build relationship with him, we just understand better, not from the perspective of trying to find a right or wrong answer or the best answer to give to a debate, but it's because he has a way of allowing us to experience life in a unique fashion that brings the text to life in a different way. So we see it differently and then we apply it differently. And then we're actually able to continue living out for Christ in such a greater manner where people are able to say, yo, there's something different about you. And we move forward from there. That to me, I think is more or less what I would present in conversations like that.
Okay. So those two reasons, and then the third, you believe God. Dion, you think God has the authority to take life, but either way, all those reasons don't really matter in the grand scheme of things because the story is what's most important.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
even trying to zoom you out more than that, man. Like
Yeah.
you're like, do I think God has the authority to take life? What is life? Let's go back to Genesis.
Don't go that deep, D.
God
Don't go.
grabs the ground, and where do we see like the human life? And again, this isn't like trying to give you like a humans aren't directly made out of ground and breathed into the God, but it's like when does life start for Adam?
The breath.
You better freak that. You better talk that thing,
You know what
dude.
I mean? So what is breath? Like breath, like when you say we break it down and we're talking like that's God, that's the
Where does it
spirit.
come from? Oh,
And
okay.
so it's like I'm trying to zoom you out because it's like, do you know how selfish we even got to be like, God has the authority to take life? Take first off, I don't even know if you can see even
What am I
see
taking? It's
take.
me.
Yes, yes, and it's like it's so that's kind of where I want you thinking. I want you breaking things down. It's almost like so humble, but yet so empowered at the same time because it's like, of course, they believe back then God had the authority to take life, but I don't think they even thought it like that. God is life. And that's the
Yes.
beauty. And when Solomon is saying, like, bro, just enjoy life, he's not saying don't care, don't do anything. He's saying, like, stop clinging to things. And the fact that you are breathing, and the fact, and that's the thing, that's how we know Jeremy's just so deep in passion. It was almost like life ain't enough for him, as if there's some deeper, like, bam, when you just shake off the passion and you get to see every living person as a beauty, right? You struggle like what can be bad about your day when you fully let some of this stuff go? All the hellish things are your own selfish creation. And that's a beautiful life to live. What is better? That is life more abundantly. You have a question or a thought?
I think you just said the answer to this question. But
Okay.
okay, considering everything we've talked about tonight and the story of the Bible itself, all pointing to one thing, what is our mission statement? Like, where do we move forward with all this? What's the purpose?
I think the purpose of life is union with God. And
Love
that's
God
what
and
the
love people.
and that's what yes, and by loving God, I would say that too. I'm saying union with God. Like that's what I think these that's the reason these stories exist. Is like on a higher cosmic level, these stories of this Old Testament are showing you that like, yo, you have ultimate bliss, the promised land waiting for you. That is that peace that transcends all understanding. But you
Right.
can't half step it. You can't allow these passions to be in there. Even a little bit of passion completely will spoil that. And that's why Israel did not follow that. When you go back and read it, you'll pay attention. They didn't eliminate everything that they were supposed to. And it the little bit of passion stayed. And then it grew. It infected Israel. And instead of being free, they ended up being captive again, repeating the cycle. That's what we're seeing on a cosmic level. That's beautiful. That's powerful. And that is what I hope you would see. And that's what the authors were trying to help us see. You know what I mean? Because they were writing to some people in captivity. And people that would understand this history of the people being captive. And so there's just so many deeper meanings for you to pull than just like I was kind of a dirtbag for that. You know what I mean? It's like, we've missed it. We've missed it. But yes, I like how you're talking and understanding it now. Is it starting to make sense?
Union with God.
Yes, union. That's the whole point. And as you strip that away, you strip away the sin. Yes, that promised land. That's what it is. And
That's what heaven is.
yes, yes.
And it's able to experience right now, or we're able to experience it right
That's
now.
what we had in the garden, peace.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And we're trying to get back to.
Okay. No,
Yes.
this is good. I may have come off like I was a skeptic or trying to press, but I generally was trying to know your guys' personal reasons behind like all this stuff.
I thought it was good. I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just
Okay,
mad I
good.
couldn't get the words to help you get it.
Okay,
You know what I
good.
Yeah, I
mean?
do
Okay.
too.
Cool,
I,
cool, cool,
I
cool.
appreciate it.
I don't think there was anything bad with it. Yes, but here's what's as you lean into this approach more though, you realize it's not an arguing game with people. Like I'm really good with words, and so that's what I was after. I was like,
Oh
fam,
yeah. Oh
what you struggle with? Let me explain it to you. But as you see, it's more like that union with God. It's not about having the argument. In the moment you start engaging in those arguments, you lose it. And so that's why I do think you do need to be able to articulate what you feel in the manner that we kind of have here today. It shouldn't be blind, but we just got to be careful with that. Like I was saying with the literal meaning, we lose God trying to take points out that especially the text wasn't trying to do. So
well
I'm glad I
said. Well
didn't
said.
leave though.
Hey, I
We
just
could
wanted to
talk.
say, that the past 3 hours that I just got in my lifetime, like right now, there was not a sermon, a scripture. I couldn't go to church and hear that,
Yes.
brother,
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good.
brother.
That's good.
I don't
man.
think you understand. Like you
Yeah.
just sat here and broke down my entire life, and I've been asked, why am I here?
Come on.
Come on.
Yes. But and again though, that's why I said sometimes it's easier to find out what is and purpose and what God is by finding out what it's not. And that's why hopefully you guys have tried, like you've tried to live a life of purpose and be like, all right, maybe I'm here to be successful or popular or rich. And you realize that is not it. That is not God. That's closer to hell the more you cling to that stuff. And so I want you guys to see how oh man, you said it so well without even knowing it, Keyshawn. Like you're able to get so much more from scripture. Not that you got from scripture, but like then sometimes when you're just reading the Bible or going to church because how can I say this? How can I say this? God help me. Like God isn't only speaking in the Bible. Maybe I'll say it like that. Okay. And that's why
Mhm.
I'm so busy talking about patterns and fractals. And you're doing it wrong if you're not reading the Bible and then you're just seeing it all over life. You're like, oh God, I'm seeing the Old Testament here in my office. I'm noticing that we had these bad players and they were just ruining the company. And we know they should have got fired, but we allowed them to stay. And they just kind of now the people that were going
Oh
good
my
start acting
gosh.
bad. You're like, it's the Bible. And then you see it in your kids, you see it in everything. So that's closer to how we know we're reading the Bible, right? Not when we're like, y'all show him that. And that stuff don't work, bro. I've argued people. I didn't had Muslims in a chokehold just to realize like this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, brother. We are not at odds. We are not enemies. And I think we are very much on the same path, just very different maturity levels and they'll experience things. They'll get it.
Yeah.
They'll
Like
get it. It
I'm
just
not
makes you
at
less
Dave.
hateful.
Like I'm not at David's point yet. I still struggle even to the point of like believing that everything I read in the Bible actually happened. Like I understand when I get it. But
Yeah.
there's like if we all were 500 years apart and you told me a story and I told Keyshawn and he told him and they got to David 500 years later, would it be the same story that you told me or that
Yeah.
you experienced? And that's where I'm still,
That's your struggle with like, yeah,
yeah,
scripture and canon. And
yeah,
Interesting.
here's what helps that though. Like, you know that telephone game and how bad it is. And like I say, when you start to really break down the Bible at this level that I'm telling you, that's when you're like, hold up. The Bible proves itself. And people struggle with that because they're like, yo, the Bible can't tell me it's true by telling me it's true. That's even how I know you're moving it. You're not reading the Bible right. You don't read the Bible to try to like necessarily prove something. And that's not the thing that the Bible's talking. The Bible's not a rule book. Hopefully I'm trying to help you see how it's breaking down the cosmos on such a crazy level. And when you apply it and you see the intricacies of the text, that's when you're like, hold up. You're right, because now these motherfluffers have the technology to prove that, yes, these texts were genuinely centuries apart. How?
Yeah.
And they
How
were
it
the
flow
same.
like that? How does it point to this? But then you rock in like the historicity of Jesus in that time. Then it really starts to make sense, because you're like, hold up, though. I see a whole group of people now, even still Jews, that struggle with the character of Jesus, not because it wasn't clear. They just had their certain path and their way of doing it. And you see these truths that the Bible isn't, it's communicating these historical truths that people are finding, but it's like galactic, cosmic truths that just keep playing out over and over in life.
And
And
I'm
that's
getting
how,
I'm
you
getting
know
there.
it's real. Yes, that's where you're
Yeah,
getting.
and
And so
I'm
don't
getting
worry
there.
about it. Trust me, fam. You can go, I done broke down all the Council of Nicaea arguments and how you can argue that the canon wasn't changed. Don't worry about that. Forget
Yeah.
it. You don't need that. Prove the Bible's existence by your life. Because here's the thing too. You prove all that stuff and it doesn't even change your life. You're just good at arguing, and you don't even have a picture of God. You have a bunch of
And
thoughts about God, and you don't have
and
and
that's
you
where
don't.
I was a year ago. I was just like, I would believe in God 100%. But somebody would bring me the Bible, and I'd be like, yes, I 100% believe in God. Everything that I should do to have a connection with Him. But there's something about this book that just, I'm like, you want me to believe from front to back that everything in this book is 100% true. And I was like, no, I can't. And now I'm to the
Yeah,
point where I'm getting to where David is like, I'm not necessarily believing that like it happened word for word how this book said it, but what is it trying to tell me
I like
about
that.
what I'm reading?
Yes.
That's
So
great.
like
And
that's what I'm getting, but it's took me a while to get here. And
Yep.
I'm still breaking it down because sometimes I read something, I'll be like, man,
dude,
I'm
can I chime in on that too?
go
Yeah. Go
ahead.
ahead.
That's kind of what I'm seeing too. Like I don't even need it to be true, literally, like evidence wise, like, oh, this happened for sure. I'm just saying like it's it's true as an ideal, like biblically. Like I
That's
wouldn't
the
I
truth.
wouldn't even
Hold up. We
I
can't just
wouldn't
pass
even
that. That's the highest level of truth. What do you mean though? You can't mix that. That's where heaven is. That is the truest of truths. Like when you say it's true on an ideal level, that's truer than an evidence level. There's things that we
yeah.
call evidence that aren't really. Think of how court works. We've had bad evidence. We've had people. Evidence is our best guess of things. At that level, the truths that the Bible are creating, they don't move. They don't change. They're not up for debate. They're realer than our real. So you're kind of getting that, but keep meditating on it. But keep going. Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I wouldn't want to live another way outside of what Jesus is calling me to live. Like I don't
Yes.
want to have sex outside of marriage. I don't want to have my kid grow up in two separate households. Like I don't want to have to deal with divorce. I don't want to have to deal with not storing my body as a temple, being fat, overweight, like most people in this world. Like I don't want to do that. I want to eat healthy. I want to take care of my body. I want to be able to make money and provide for my family and community. Like I want to be able to love God and live a selfless life and be kind to people. Like that's what it is, and I think that's where it's just ideally, fundamentally, it's all true in that sense, and that's why I think, yeah, that's why it's like it's just superior. It's just the way to live, man. That's what I'm seeing. Um,
Yep.
the life of Christianity.
You're on it. You're
Yeah,
definitely on it, man. Last thing I'll say is it gets even deeper than that, though, because
it
you
does.
just talked about all the good things that you want to do. Or remember the original people catching this gospel, or just how human history worked in general, man. The guy was still there for those people. Like, you had a very good, you didn't have the kind of control you have now, man. You very well, like, you're talking about all these good things you want to do. Fam, when you were catching this gospel, you might have saw your dad sell your sister off to some ninja that you knew
Yeah,
was going to be doing some, and then he sold her to another. You don't even talk to you don't even see your sister until randomly 20 years later you might be doing something. You know what I mean? And you couldn't be successful and go marry a woman and have this, but you were in poverty. You were going to die poor and you were going to be a slave and working your whole day, something like that. Now you see how much of the gospel it is. He's saying that 10 out of 10 that you feel now, he was giving that to them.
ow, that's crazy. Wait, okay, you got to
It's
break that down.
it's so much deeper. Yes. I'm like, it's so much
dude,
deeper, fam.
dude,
So
dude.
much
How are they
deeper.
a 10 out of 10 then? Real quick, real quick.
No, that's why the kingdom of heaven is within. It has nothing to do with the outside. That's why he says stop looking. Stop looking.
Hello.
The gospel isn't like, hey, once you get this, Bitcoin gonna hit for you and you're gonna get out the hood. It's like, no, fam. He knew these people. He was like, you're gonna die poor. You're not gonna get no more money. And that wasn't the gospel. But here's the thing though. You had rich young rulers that were essentially in hell. That's what we're seeing there. He still wasn't satisfied. He was empty. He was empty. But then you have the poor woman, right? The tithe. Do you know what I mean? And she had a fullness that he didn't have. That's the gospel. Stop looking outside, man. So that's why when you were like, I just want to do this, I want to do that, I was like, yeah, living in America, that will be a natural representation. Like, you won't get closer to God and things just get bad. Like, you should become more reliable. You should make more money. But then my question is, that's still not the gospel. What do you do with that? That's more of the gospel, because like that's just a natural thing. The gospel is you should be good and be willing to give all that up and not need it.
That's so crazy. That's like someone relying only on Proverbs and like, okay, if I do this, I'll get this. But then you come in with like Ecclesiastes, like all that's meaningless anyways. This is what really matters. Like, love God, love people.
Sprinkling Job on top.
Yeah.
And then throwing Job just for that galactic confusion that you have of like, why God let that happen? You know what I mean? There's a little bit of Job from that Old Testament stuff. It's like, that's why I was like, you got to go so much deeper to be upset with God. God's allowing some stuff, man.
Yes.
And so,
dude, I don't even want to go because like it's, bro, I love this, man. I get a kick out. Y'all gonna have me up till like 5 in the morning now. I'm chatting it up with ChatGPT. But I'm just saying, bro, this is, and I love this type of conversation because I've had conversations with people like, because there's a legitimate question behind like, okay, well, what happens to the people who ain't never really heard the gospel? Because people attempt that to mean like, oh, okay, so if you've never heard that Jesus came, died, and resurrected, then there's no. But it's like, okay, well, first off, we have to apply this logic to the Old Testament.
Correct.
Because Jesus wasn't even there.
Yep.
So how do they have that? And yet, you know what I'm saying? How does Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, how do all these cats move forward into a covenant, into a promise with God? And yet Jesus they're not even thinking of an individual named Jesus the way that we are retrospectively thinking of Jesus.
Keep going, great, but yet
text.
Jesus is still present there.
And
the divine logos is there the whole time, but we're not taught. Where is the name of Jesus? You know what I'm saying?
Come on,
but keep going.
It's not there. When you read, this is why I fell in love with the book of Leviticus. And I hope one day somebody will follow me.
That. You're still a nerd, yeah.
No, well, listen, it's not. What's crazy is that, like reading through the scriptures now, it's definitely not up there in like top 5. Like
top 3, yeah, good.
Yeah,
job.
it definitely
top 3
is.
or something.
Like if you were to ask me today, like if I had to choose a book that I would have to carry for the rest of my life, Leviticus is not going to be one of them. Okay, I promise. Yet it's still an amazing book, though, because even in the design of a temple, from the colors to the positioning to the symbolic gestures of how the camp was organized, Jesus is in the mix of all
meanings,
of that.
Yes,
and the practical meanings behind it are still able to gather. I had a conversation with somebody at the dentist the last time I went. That was the second time I've had her as like a dentist. So we just obviously have good conversations. So she's a believer. So we have great conversation. And I asked her, I said, man, have you ever read the Bible through? She's like, yeah, I just can't really get the understandings of the Old Testament. My encouragement to her was like, just read it. Like, I just need you to just read it. And then, of course, you can come back and look at the applications and stuff like that. But every time I sit down, bro, and I read scripture, and this is just me because of where I am, not to make any light of where somebody else might be that isn't there yet. But it's like, bro, there's just too much value to gain from reading the Old Testament for you to look at it and say, no, there's nothing here for me. Even if it's so far back, it's because of the applications, man, the implications of the explicit text that is given from front to back. So, like, I just think but this is the main thing I wanted to say in all of this was we look at all the good things that you mentioned, right? I forgot everything you said, but just in light of everything that's positive.
Yeah.
Don't forget that we can apply that same stuff to be so willingly and easily in a lot of ways drop a weird considering heavy weights. When Paul was considering weights in the New Testament, I'm not going to necessarily say everything that he was thinking of because I don't know. But I have a hard time believing that some of the stuff that we consider hard as believers is what he was considering as hard and difficult. Especially from an Americanized first world issues.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think he was thinking of that. So like I want you to see in light of like again, the pornographic addictions, the sex addictions, all these different struggles that we might carry. Bro, this is the same power that's available to us that ushers us in a space to be able to say, I can let it go. I don't have to hold it as so near and dear like I've been making it. I don't have to keep telling myself it's as hard as maybe it is. When in reality, if I actually just again, with all you're getting, get understanding. These aren't just words Solomon just writes to write. When I get an understanding about something, it makes it easier to step into or more difficult to step into because I understand what the repercussions and issues are behind me going further into this. Right. So it's not something that we just fall into blind faith about. It's something that we actually get to understand better and better at a practical level. The same Jesus that, yes, once, we always talk about the blessings, the prosperous. This is what blew my mind. Okay, I'm gonna shut up after this because I'm rambling. I can tell. Number 6, if you check out Numbers chapter 6,
Number
everybody
6.
talks about that being the blessing. When Moses pronounces the blessing over Israel, I believe it's number 6, verse, I believe 27. I think it starts at 27 or something along those lines. He says,
Okay.
uh, uh, man, I'm forgetting the song and how it goes.
I got you.
Uh,
Hold on.
you got it? You got it pulled up?
I got my Bible open. Number
Okay.
6.
Nah, don't get
Yeah.
him to read an exact scripture. He better get the gist of it.
Okay. Yeah,
General.
you're right. So the gist of it.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. May the
My
Lord
fault,
bless
OG.
you and protect you. Something like that.
Yes, yes. May the Lord bless you. So watch this, bro. This is so beautiful because we would assume God's blessing on our life is all of this, again, first world benefits, job, salary, money, car, wedding, marriage. God is just going to,
Outward
I'm
stuff.
praying for it, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
all this external stuff. This blessing that Moses is praying over them is so far beyond that. It's ridiculous. To the point where he says the blessings come in the form of God protecting you and keeping you. The blessing that comes in the form of God keeping you, of you being aligned in where God is, right? Then he says there's a specific stanza in there that allows us to actually interpret it from original text to mean that even if it's not something that we would prefer, it's still what's best for us.
Hmm.
And God considers that a blessing. So then when you go and travel to books like Job and you see all this suffering he goes through, all these questions he raises, and God is in some way, shape, or form using such a suffering to say, bro, this is what is best for you, even if it's uncomfortable for you, because there's something extremely valuable in you that has to come out of you that I want, that is going to go so much further than you not experiencing this level of suffering. Like, that could go over a lot of people's heads, but I just think that is extremely valuable. So it makes you reframe what a blessing is. Like it's tough to go out and talk to a Western culture today about a Bible that if people in the Bible had come to our context today, bro, we wouldn't even recognize them. We wouldn't even recognize them. We wouldn't even know what to do with them because they're just moving in a whole different way. And so we have to travel to a whole other side of the earth to understand text and how it's written and what it means.
Yeah.
And that's our due diligence and what we have to do in order to actually apply it accurately and not just pick and choose what text we want to listen to that makes us feel good and feel better about certain situations we're experiencing. Like one of the toughest things that Americans have to deal with, in my opinion, is is being willing to stay when God says no. That's probably one of the biggest struggles I see people doing. How quick are we to bail on God when we don't get what we want and we swore up and down He promised us? No, it's what you promised you. It ain't what He said though.
Mm.
And if He says no, are you gonna stay? Because everybody predicates God off this. If I get what I want, then God is beneficial to me. But we don't do that in any other relationship earthly that's actually meaningful to us. We will never move like that, but we will towards God. It's wishy-washy and it's backwards. It's disgusting. It's nasty work. It's abysmal. I don't know how many other descriptions I could give. It's awful. It's awful because people just don't get what they're reading. Um, they just don't get what they're reading, and it shows.
It's good.
I love that we stayed on, David. Did it help?
What do you think, Ninja?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Hey, I like it. I
Definitely,
like it.
definitely. This is
I was
better than
worried.
no.
I just
Oh, you were? How so?
Yeah, I was worried that we were gonna leave you in a place of almost like more question before it got better. Because I know you're still gonna have a lot of things to think through and work through. I just hope we left you on the upwards trend. I feel like we kind of had you at
You
it down for a while.
you did, and then you brought it up.
Brought it
Yeah,
back. Okay,
I'm glad.
cool.
Yeah. You did amazing. This is like
Nice.
better than any Bible study I've ever experienced aside from the Truth Project stuff. So like, yeah,
Love it.
this is great. Yeah,
Love it, man. Love it. Love it.
thank you
Okay.
guys.
And then Katie, are you good? Were you gonna share a thought? I know at one point for you had your hand up.
You did.
That
Yeah.
was what we just talked about
You
tonight.
shared it. Okay, bet. All right. Well, shoot. I mean, it kind of makes sense that y'all were the ones to stay on this late. Y'all are the ones really thriving spiritually, man. And I'm not trying to get into more fractals, but like this is real and this is powerful. And I think this is gonna flow. Just allow this conversation to flow through you, man. And this infinite game that we're talking about and understanding, just take it with you throughout the day because it's not something we're supposed to just get intellectually. Like it's a means to an end. This is our life. Like I said, it's that heaven to earth. And so let it change how you see people. Let it change how you talk to people. All of that, man. So all right, I'll leave it there. But I loved it. If y'all have any follow-ups, y'all know I love them. So get at me on Voxer.
Will do, dog. Thank
All
y'all.
right.
I'm grateful for this one. Hey,
Yup.
this number one for me. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah,
Facts.
come
Hey, we
on.
need this recording
Yeah.
ASAP.
And said he's gonna throw it up in the momentum section on school. So if y'all want to go back and watch it, it'll
Bro,
be there.
that's gonna be nasty work.
Watch.
Yeah, y'all still got like a library full of truth projects y'all can go catch too.
Yep. Definitely.
Watch.
All right, y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good one.
Much
Take it
love.
easy.
Thank you guys.
Later.
Later.